Adventure Time was an awesome TV show that ran from 2010 to 2018, with 283 episodes spanning 10 seasons on Cartoon Network. The show followed Jake the dog and Finn the human, a heroic duo who would go on crazy adventures in the magical land of Oo, with the show's humor being almost unmatched.
Tell me a joke.
Okay, what do you call a bear that only attacks guys named Paul?
I killed Jake! Yay, Bimo!
And I rewatched the show so many times as a kid, I practically remember the series by heart, and could make entire videos on single episodes of the show, like one where Jake spends the entire time as a brick in a dilapidated shack, because he wants to know what it's like to be a brick when that shack falls down. He then becomes infatuated by the simple beauty of a bunny, whose mundane existence becomes a meaningful and heroic narration that enthralls the entire land of Oo. Or an episode where Finn is depressed after losing his arm, and tries to numb this pain by making out with every princess in Oo, an allegory for the unhealthy coping mechanism of surface level affection after experiencing deep trauma. What started as another silly cartoon about butt jokes and PG-rated sword fights slowly morphed into the tale of a post-apocalyptic world of mutated creatures and magic, barely held together against threats of atomic, cosmic, and even interdimensional scale. But before we get into breaking down all of Fionna and Cake, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Adventure Time was definitely top 5 cartoons for me growing up as a kid, holding a spot next to stuff like The Amazing World of Gumball as one of the last great shows to come out of Cartoon Network, which today is nothing more than a shell of a channel. The body of Adventure Time is still carted around like some sort of Weekend at Bernie's abomination, next to the rebooted baby versions of other famous shows. Rest in piss, Cartoon Network. The series ending, while feeling pretty abrupt, was at least well wrapped up, and left us with the beautiful message that while the show itself might be over, the world of Oo continued on, with the characters we know and love continuing to go on adventures, until their time was over and a new generation of heroes and adventurers would continue on in their place. And then they ruined this by just continuing the show with a bunch of spin-offs. I'm being hyperbolic, a lot of the new Adventure Time content has been pretty good, but definitely hasn't been needed. Distant Lands was a spin-off series that came out in 2020, with 4 standalone episodes airing over the course of a year. None of them really added too much to the original lore of the show, and were just little one-offs. Bimo is a prequel adventure that ends with him crashing on Earth, meeting Finn and Jake, who we see her with throughout the entirety of the main show. Obsidian is an adventure mainly focused on the relationship of Marceline and Princess Bubblegum in a previously unheard of Glass Kingdom. Together Again is probably my favorite and also the saddest, following Finn through the dead world after he's passed away of what looks like old age, as he goes on a quest to find Jake so the two can be together again. The last is Wizard City, which follows Peppermint Butler as he navigates wizard school as a kid again, thanks to the Dum Dum juice spilled on him before the finale of the original series. Now, like I said, none of these spin-off episodes are a true continuation of the original show. They're just fun standalone adventures after the original shows ended, that might add a tiny piece of extra lore here or there. But before the last episode of Distant Lands dropped, it was announced that a full 10-episode spin-off of the gender-bent characters Fionna and Cake would air on HBO Max, a platform already known for picking up the spiritual successor of Cartoon Network shows before unceremoniously executing them to make room for Velma.
I have a disease where I can't recognize people who aren't hot.
Is it called rudeness?
It is. You're like smart.
Oh wow, thank you.
Yeah, not a compliment.
Before we can get to the new show, we need to talk about what Fionna and Cake was in the original series. Season 3 episode 9 is the first we see of these two characters, and I cannot accurately express the buzz surrounding this episode from just the teasers dropping when I was a kid. There were so many theories, including some darker stuff, like Fionna and Cake being from earlier in the timeline of Oo, and that Susan Strong, a character revealed in episode 18 of season 2 as potentially the only human other than Finn, is actually all that remains of Fionna after going mad, having taken the corpse of Cake and making a hat out of her. But when the episode finally came out, it was revealed that Fionna and Cake was just a fanfiction made by Ice King, based on Finn and Jake. And while there was a handful of episodes later that told more stories from this fanfiction world, such as Bad Little Boy, which introduced Marshally the Vampire King, The Prince Who Wanted Everything, which introduced Lumpy Space Prince, and 5 Short Tables, a spoof on another episode format, where 5 unconnected stories are brought together by a single theme. This last one most notably introduced Flame Prince, and like the rest, was nothing more than a silly goofy fanfiction from Ice King. This later changed dramatically towards the end of the series, with the episode Fionna and Cake and Fiona. At first, it seems Fionna is a real person who's shown up to Ice King's reading of his fanfiction to play a VHS tape of an actual Fionna and Cake adventure. It turns out that this woman is actually just a rabbit that had accidentally intercepted a signal of some sort that turned out to be the episode, and that the idea and adventures of Fionna and Cake are beamed into Ice King's mind at night by some unknown means. This concept was introduced in the last 16 episodes of the show and was definitely meant to retcon the origins of Fionna and Cake, probably in hopes to expand on the idea later. When the new show was announced, I was pretty excited to see what they do, and when I finally watched the first season, I was really impressed with the way they handled the story. Now before we get into the second season, which I plan to break down episode by episode, I'm going to have to go over the first, but only as much as is needed for this video. I'm also going to explain only as much of the original Adventure Time lore as necessary in the process. The first season of Fionna and Cake explains that Prismo the Wishmaster actually came up with the idea of the two out of boredom, and because he isn't that creative, it was basically just the land of Ooh with the gender swapped Finn and Jake. This alternate universe was technically a wish he wasn't supposed to make for himself, so he hid it inside the crazed mind of the Ice King, using him as a magical hard drive, as they put it. Ice King was reverted back to Simon Petrikov at the end of the original show, becoming sane again, and now lives among the returned humans from Founders Island, as a sort of exhibit of 21st century humanity. He's pretty depressed over losing Betty, his fiancée, who merged with Gulb, the embodiment of chaos, to save Simon and the entirety of Ooh. He tries to get her back using an evil Choose Goose as a magic battery, accidentally killing him in the process and pulling Fionna and Cake out of his head and into the land of Ooh. At the same time, it's set up that universe hopping is not allowed, and that a creature known as the Scarab, a god auditor, has the job of hunting down cosmic beings who either abandon their posts or violate their rules. Fionna and Cake's crossover into Ooh went unnoticed by a depressed Prismo, who becomes the target of the Scarab. After discovering the unauthorized universe, as well as Fionna and Cake, he tries to kill them to solve the crossover, in hopes of taking over Prismo's job as Wishmaster. The two team up with a reluctant Simon and universe hop in an attempt to find a working ice crown to use as a magic battery to get the two back into his head, while also sacrificing Simon's sanity to turn back into the Ice King, which would bring magic back to Fiona's world. This leads them through a number of worlds, including some we're familiar with, all pretty fun to watch the trio interact with. The first dimension they end up in is Farm World, created from a good-intentioned wish from Finn in the season 5 debut. After being tricked into doing the bidding of the Lich, who's the embodiment of evil and death, Finn wishes the Lich never existed, and is transported to a new universe and timeline, where the atom bomb that created the Lich was stopped by that timeline's Ice King, killing him, while preventing the world's 1,000-year transformation into Ooh. But after turning into the new Ice King to save his family from the Destiny Gang, Farm World Finn accidentally sets off the bomb anyways, creating the Lich from their world's Jake. In season 7 episode 23, Prismo asks Finn and Jake to help him destroy Jake the Lich, using an interdimensional weapon known as the Maid, which canonically Bimo is now the owner of, before he can use their universes in Kyridian to create a portal to the multiverse. The duo destroyed the Lich, and Prismo does some paradoxical timeline editing to destroy the crown in the initial blast, so Farm World Finn can be free of its influence. Over a decade later, the world is now a post-apocalyptic wasteland, where Destiny and his gang are still the top dog, and Finn is the father of 5, living out on what used to be his family's farm. They find only the remains of the destroyed crown, and Farm World Finn totally survives this fatal-looking attack from the Scarab through the power of mycopium and previous lore about these animal hats being for vampire protection. I wrote that before the release of episode 6, and I was right, fuck you. Our trio then teleports to the next universe. They were able to find only a jewel from the Farm World crown and use it to jump to other universes with crowns, landing them at the doorstep of the Winter King, a completely sane and very powerful version of the Ice King, somehow not affected by the insanity brought on by the hundreds of years of crown bearers' influence on the wearer. But in this dimension, Princess Bubblegum is the insane one, kidnapping both Simons in hopes of blending them into a fine paste alongside her, something we're told is quite the escalation. After fighting through the candy folk to stop her, it's revealed by an anti-magic kiss between Fionna and the Winter King that he was projecting his insanity off of himself and onto Bonnie, who is now free from the curse. The Scarab was quickly contained by the Winter King, but now that his magic is gone, he is no longer immortal and dies, the Ice Kingdom melts away, freeing the Scarab, and the trio are barely able to escape to the next universe. The third universe they end up in is Babyland. Everyone is a baby. That is it. They take a nap and move on. The fourth universe is one where the Great Mushroom War still happened, but Simon was killed by a vampire before finding and rescuing Marceline. In the main universe, his guidance during these critical years led to Marceline using her demon powers to exterminate the vampire race, eventually killing the Vampire King while protecting the remains of humanity, but at the cost of being bit by him and becoming the last vampire on Earth. But she refuses to drink blood and instead only drinks the color red from things. However, in this timeline, she was instead found and raised by the Vampire King, becoming his right-hand man and taking on a new moniker, the Star. The Vampire King has also become the owner of the crown and uses it to block out the sun permanently. In this universe, Bubblegum is on a mission to destroy both the Vampire King and the Star with the help of this universe's Huntress Wizard, who's just a normal hunter, and Martin Mertens, the father of Finn, who in the main timeline was an interdimensional criminal that eventually escaped all responsibility by merging with a comet and ascending to a new plane of existence. The plan goes awry, and Fionna and Cake start fighting over the remote, Cake believing she can grab the crown from the Vampire King, but Fionna is worried she'll get hurt. They break the remote, but are able to teleport away before Cake can grab the crown. The next dimension they enter is devoid of life, save for Bimo, who is technically a robot and not alive. She also makes mention of someone named Jerry who randomly showed up, before taking the trio to the Ice Kingdom to look for the crown. Nothing is left but the belongings of this universe's Simon, and realizing their only option is fixing the remote, Bimo says she'll take them to Princess Bubblegum, who turns out to just be Bimo and Bubblegum's crown. Not knowing how to fix the remote, Cake loses it again, angry that Fionna stopped her from taking the Vampire King's crown. After Simon finishes telling Fionna the story of how he and Betty got together, Bimo uses her hero heart to try and jumpstart the remote, which fucking kills her, making the ultimate sacrifice for people she'd barely known. They decided to go give Jerry the bad news about Bimo, only to discover that Jerry is actually the Lich, specifically the version of the Lich that tricked Finn and Jake back in the season 4 finale by possessing the dead body of Finn's hero, Billy. His wish was for the extinction of all life, so a new universe was created, where everyone and everything instantly died upon his arrival. With his goal of extinction completed and no purpose left, he spends his days rotting away upon a pile of corpses. And seeing no choice, Fionna admits she found the crown back in the Ice Kingdom. But after seeing the sad and insane being Simon would become, she doesn't want him to be cursed with that burden again. But Simon has come to terms with it, and using the Lich as their new magic battery, the two are able to portal back into their unauthorized universe. But before he can put the crown on, and right before the Scarab kills him, Simon thinks about Betty, and the original spell, whose purpose was to reach Golb so he could see her again, finally works, teleporting both the Scarab and Simon, as well as the Lich, to Golb Betty. The Lich laments his lack of purpose, and is transformed into one of the Tetris blocks known to float around Golb, while Simon talks to Betty about how much he wanted to see her again, and that he's decided to turn back into the Ice King to help Fionna and Cake's world. Golb Betty stops him by zapping his mind into Shermie, the spiritual successor to Finn, 2,000 years in the future of the main Ooh universe. With the help of Beth, a descendant of Jake, as well as his spiritual successor, Simon is able to realize his relationship with Betty was incredibly one-sided, and that while they were both in love, since the moment they met, Betty was always the one giving up her opportunities to follow Simon. And while that's not necessarily an issue, she eventually sacrificed everything for him, and him deciding to become Ice King again would make all of that sacrifice in vain. I'm with you up to this point, okay? But here's where we start losing steam. During all of this, the Scarab has infiltrated Fionna World through Simon's head portal, and begins erasing all of it, until Simon spits out Fionna World, which turns into a dandelion. He then reaches into the portal to give Fionna the dandelion, she blows on it, and Fionna World becomes canonized. It can't be repossessed by the Scarab, and after the gang trap him in one of his own containment eggs, they're free to start rebuilding their world. And now with a handful of people from other universes crossing over to live new lives. crossovers. Now I really enjoyed this season, especially as some sort of standalone wrap-up to the open question created about Fionna and Cake's origins in the original series. But this was ignoring a number of plot holes, as well as the poorly thought out ending. For starters, Fionna and Cake being more than Ice King's fanfic is a retcon that doesn't work with our current timeline of events. When Prismo explains he created the universe himself, he says he quickly realized it was just a copy of Finn and Jake, but didn't really care because he found it fun to make. The problem is, Fionna and Cake were introduced in Season 3, Episode 9, far before Prismo ever met Finn and Jake, and far before Jake and Prismo became good friends. Such good friends that Jake is able to bring Prismo back from the dead through the creation of a time paradox. Another huge plot hole is the problem with Prismo creating stuff for himself now being some sort of no-no rule. Prismo makes shit for himself all the time, outside the bounds of any wishes in the original show. But technically, none of them really need a new universe, so you can argue he's just not allowed to make new universes. By the end of the season, he's showing Scarab how to make unauthorized universes himself. So we seem to have just tossed the rulebook altogether, because not only is making your own stuff just fine now, but ignoring crossovers like Baby Finn and the Farm World couple are fine. And this fire guy completely abandoned his post as a cosmic being on the level of Scarab and Prismo, and no one seems to care anymore, while the Scarab was punished for trying to destroy Fionna World, which was outside of his jurisdiction. Kinda feels like a double standard here. Moreover, during the Farm World incident, and the episode literally called Crossover, Finn cuts off Jake the Lich's hand, which falls into the multiverse portal, duplicating across all of them, with one landing in Ooh. But no one was ever on Prismo's ass for the Lich hand entering other universes, despite it going unhandled for 2 whole seasons. This Lich hand comes back to haunt Sweet Pea, who himself is the regenerated toddler created from the main timeline's Lich, after he's hit with the healing blood of the Citadel Guardians. Sweet Pea's arc involves overcoming the evil inherent in his creation, which culminates in him killing the Lich Hand in Season 9, Episode 13, Whispers. We even see in the season finale, 1,000 years later, Sweet Pea is a giant who by this point is the wielder of Finn's Night Sword. There are also further issues with some of the dimensions they visit, like Farm World, called that because it had barely developed past subsistence farming, but now there's some sort of Mad Max-like Fallout-style post-apocalyptic world with cars and stuff. How does taking a gem from the crown and shoving it into the remote reprogram it to start jumping to dimensions that contain crowns? Here guys, let me just reprogram my remote. The Winter King is way too powerful to the point of plot contrivance. He literally charges Fiona's phone, causing it to magically get signal across the multiverse, something needed later so they can communicate with Simon after they make it back home. Winter King also dies immediately after losing his magic, and his kingdom vanishes instantly. But the mainline Ice King lost his powers to Bella Noche, a being of anti-magic, in Season 5 Episode 48, Betty. While the Ice King does revert back to being Simon again, and is slowly dying now that he isn't immortal, it's not instant, nor does the Ice Kingdom melt immediately. Wait, how did they know they were safe enough to take a nap in Baby World when the Scarab was actively chasing them? As a viewer, we know it's because he was grabbed by his boss, and had to plead his case before he was allowed to continue chasing them. But that's not information our gang would be aware of. Wait a second, if Marceline was taken and raised by the Vampire King, how the fuck is she old enough for doomed Yuri by the time our trio arrived? The reason she's 18 to 19 years old in the main universe is because that was the age the half demon became half vampire. In this timeline, she would still be a 7-year-old vampire, because how and why would it make sense for the Vampire King to raise her for over a decade before biting her? Jerry the Lich went into a depressive state after losing all purpose, but he's well aware that he has the power to travel the multiverse using the Enchiridion, as well as the fact that the stones of power needed to do that are freely laying around for the taking. He basically could have done the same thing Jake the Lich was up to. Oh wait, actually no, because Billy is needed to open the Enchiridion to turn it into a portal. Even Jake the Lich needed the Farm World equivalent, so he can't just do that if Billy is dead in this universe. And it's not like they'd randomly change that requirement for no discernible reason in the new show. And obviously the biggest issue, how exactly did Fionna World become canon from this dandelion? What the hell are the rules here? It's not just unauthorized, but the higher-ups no no longer care because it's Prismo and they all like him, it becomes canon. I can accept Simon randomly spitting their universe out. We can chalk that up to the mysterious powers of Gulb. And maybe, if I read into it as hard as possible, we can argue that the dandelion was wish magic, and Fionna wished their universe could stay how it was, and that somehow made the universe canon, like Farm World or Dead World were canon by non-Prismo wishes. It's just a bit flimsy and not explained well. There were also a handful of other things going on in the background of this season, like the Scarab beginning to neglect his duties as he obsesses over catching Fionna and Cake, something that doesn't even fall under his jurisdiction to begin with, and in the process he ends up ignoring calls in the same way Prismo did. He eventually gets yoinked by his boss Orbo, otherwise known as Bluey's dad.
Nice speech. Say goodbye to your legs.
Orbo is not God, but God is real and communicates by means of phone line falling from the sky. While originally it was planned to reprimand Scarab, God gives him another go at it. Why is never explained. But this hiccup allowed our party to make it through both the vampire universe and the dead world with no interruptions. And the Scarab only barely makes it to them as Simon is about to put on the crown. Another issue never touched on is what the plan was if Simon died, because the Scarab seems perfectly down to just kill him to wipe out Fionna World. And even if they made it into his head, a second longer and the Ice King would be back and then gone again, meaning all their efforts would have been in vain. The other major thing going on is a side plot about Gary and Marshall, the gay counterpart to Marceline and Bonnie. Gary is a baker who wants to get his pastry idea off the ground, which are the characters from the Candy Kingdom. Marshall tries to help him by getting back into favor with his mother, a wealthy business owner in town. This eventually leads to Gary and Marshall storming out of a banquet and kissing, deciding to just do their own thing rather than catered to Miss Abadir. Now, I am of the absolute firm and unmovable belief that this entire side plot stuff sucked massive penis. Adventure Time has 283 entire episodes, and stuff has been going down for thousands of years before its history started. Marcy and Bonnie had a very complicated relationship from before we even hit the ground. They previously dated, became friendly enemies, then eventually ended up back together at the end of the show. Something that was definitely saved for the finale to avoid getting cancelled. And low-key, it kind of felt unnaturally fast considering the snail's pace it was going, but the point is, there was definitely more going on in this relationship. In this universe, the world has existed in its non-magical form for at least 12 years, and these two have zero relationship up until this point, meeting for the first time in Fiona's apartment. There is no turmoil or conflict, no resentment that's slowly handled over the course of character growth. There's fucking nothing.
You've been quiet tonight.
You just met this guy. How do you know how quiet he usually is? He's only said 270 words in the entire show so far. I know, I counted. Overall, season 1 of Fionna and Cake gets a solid 9 out of 10 from me. I can ignore all the issues I have with it because it was fun to watch and was generally pretty funny. This story was just enough to get across everything needed, just like the Distant Lands spinoff. And now that their story is told, we can put Adventure Time to rest. Oh my god, they made more. So season 2 of the show began dropping, and the biggest question I had while watching it was why? Why are we continuing this perfectly well wrapped up story? What more is there to tell that revolves around Fionna and Cake? Living in a non-magical world because that's what they chose. There's got to be some sort of explanation for this continuation. I'm gonna call it right now. I'm throwing this line in December 3rd of 2025. They're eventually going to announce and release Adventure Time 2000 following Shermie and Beth, because they're gonna milk this shit until I'm dead. This new season follows the mundane lives of Fionna and Cake right after securing their universe in the last season. There's also a B story of Finn entering a poison-induced coma after landing on a bush back in the first season. But this season has a massive issue. We are moving at story paces previously thought impossible. While the original show was really good at world building using meaningful standalone stories, Fionna and Cake has decided to continue the first season strategy, taking a single story, in this case 2 parallel stories, and stretching it out across an entire season. But the problem is, it's way less interesting than last season was. We had to learn about the new age Simon was living in, set up Fionna and Cake's non-magical existence, set off the drama with the Scarab, and then we got to jump to a bunch of different universes. While it was a single story being dragged across 4 hours, it was a fun 4 hours. It sparked joy. But when it comes to the second season, I am not having fun. This does not spark joy. The stakes are extremely extremely low, at least for Fiona's side of things. And by the end of this video, I'm going to explain to you how her entire arc was lifted from a book that they showed for half a second. The main problem throughout this season is that the show wants to bring in a ton of ideas surrounding different characters to try and fill this empty world with lore, but because this season is one serialized story instead of episodic, it works about as well as spreading seeds on a blacktop and expecting something to grow. While the two main stories focus on Fionna and Huntress, Cake, Marshall, Not Gary, and a few others have their own side plots scattered throughout a runtime that adds up to about 21 Adventure Time episodes, while having nowhere near that many episodes worth of actual content or lore. The season also has a problem of telling and showing too much, when part of the fun of Adventure Time is that we don't need to be told every little thing. We're left to speculate because we've been dropped into a world that existed for thousands of years. This dungeon doesn't need a flashback sequence to explain why the skeleton bird wants you to take his place, or who created the dungeon train, or what the egress dungeon is all about. The show also throws away pretty much every past rule we've seen surrounding dreams, wishes, cosmic beings, and generally speaking, magic, all because they need these rules to not exist to make their story work, rather than making sure to write something that fit into the pre-established lore. We're going to go over every episode one by one and talk about everything that works and everything that doesn't. Now it's time to start with episode 1, The Hare and the Sprout. We start with a recap of the last season by Astrid, a little girl who was obsessed with Simon's Fionna and Cake stories, and who ended up helping both of them before Prismo noticed they had made it into Ooh. After that, we cut to Fionna waking up in her apartment, which still has a giant hole in it from the scarab fight. A song from DJ Flame begins to play on the radio, and she quickly turns it off, while trying to find something on TV to watch. The options are limited to stuff that Simon knew about back in his time, including Cheers, Friends, Gilmore Girls, and Sister Sister. She finally settles on some action-packed show about defending a castle, something that'll come up later. Fionna then goes over to her window and calls over to Cake, who is now living it up in her own apartment. Something that'll become apparent throughout the episodes is that Cake is attempting to be less cat-like, trying to embrace her new form and intelligence, but she sometimes struggles in fighting her cat-like instincts. Fionna explains that the two have a big day ahead of them, and we see she does in fact have quite the to-do list, before Cake carries her out the window without any pants on. Then we cut to the credits. We're 3 minutes into the new season so far, and besides a recap being superfluous because HBO Max has the rights to the entire show and season 1 is right there, we're not off to a terrible start. We're shown the rest of the city is still under repair by the Dying Light 2 survivors apparently. I'm really not sure how structurally sound these wooden additions are, but they do look whimsy. Their first stop is the hardware store to pick up decorative lights, and they're helped out by the gender-swapped version of Old Buck Pudding, introduced in the episode Root Beer Guy. After they help her out, she does make a comment about how if Fionna had worked that hard while employed, she wouldn't have been fired, a quickly noted on problem in the first season being that Fionna sucked at holding a job. Their next stop is to print out a bunch of flyers, and while there, the gender-swapped version of Turtle Princess gives her a discount for saving the city, and apologizes for firing her as well. On the way to the next errand, a small child recognizes Cake. She asks Cake to shapeshift for her before absolutely losing her shit, and it's quite humorous. While heading to their next errand, they run into Queenie, this universe's version of the one true king of Ooh, a moderately successful con man who's always looking for ways to swindle people. While giving a bus tour, she heckles Fionna, saying she's the one who destroyed the city. The rest of the riders easily see past this, recognizing her as the hero that saved them from the scarab. A fight almost breaks out, but seeing that all these people look up to her, Fionna is able to keep her cool. Their next stop is the candy supply store, a location we saw in the first season, run by this universe's Monochromicorn, or Imkron as he's called. Imkron's Ooh World equivalent is Lady Ranicorn, a rainbow unicorn from the Crystal Dimension who only speaks Korean. She's the girlfriend of Jake and mother of his litter, who all have some sort of crazy powers thanks to their Ranicorn heritage mixed with Jake's half-dog, half-shapeshifter DNA. Lady Ranicorn herself has a pretty rounded out history, escaping to Ooh to prevent her anarchist ex-boyfriend from restarting the war between dogs and Ranicorns, using the power of a crystal sandwich. There's no backstory for Imkron. He doesn't even speak. Also, he wants to fuck a cat. Cake has a crush on him, even shapeshifting into a curvy woman before entering the store. But guys, she's a fucking cat. Imkron is a human. The implications of this are horrendous. We then get a reference to a very early Adventure Time episode. Season 2, Episode 4, Blood Under the Skin. A knight known as Sir Slicer harasses Finn about his lack of armor. This version of the character is known as Lady Cutter, and is shown for basically no reason but fan service, grabbing Fiona's cocoa before she jumps Lady Cutter to get it back. On the way out, Cake sees that Imkron gave her his number. If you've ever wondered why numbers in TV shows never have area codes and always start with 555, it's because in the 60s, phone companies set aside 100 unused numbers from 555-0100 to 555-0199 and urged filmmakers to use these on screen to prevent them calling real numbers, saving everyone money and hassle. Practically no company activates any 555 numbers nowadays, to leave it as the standard for television. This receipt also gives us a ton of info. The date tells us it's apparently October 10th of 2024, and the city's name is apparently just The City. The street the store is on is also called Waffle Dog Avenue, which is pretty interesting considering that's exactly what Fiona had for breakfast that morning. They get a call from Simon, showing us the overpowered cell phone still works for no explainable reason, and while they're talking on the phone, they pass a DJ Flame poster, which Fiona shudders at. The second time we've been shown her aversion to this character, who's the Fiona World equivalent to Flame Princess, and who in the first season were shown dated Fiona before breaking up with her over text. Flame Princess was one of Finn's biggest love interests in the original series, as well as his biggest relationship fuck up on screen. In episode 30 of season 5, this already doomed relationship ends when Finn manipulates Flame Princess into fighting the Ice King to relive the dream he had after she'd previously beaten him. The entire episode is an allegory for puberty and unfamiliar hormonal desires causing confusing urges, and how an immature partner or friend can use others in ways that disrespect their boundaries, showing why you shouldn't treat such strong emotional forces like Flame Princess's passion and Ice King's repression as playthings. Finn has a ton of episodes about his emotional growth as he slowly matures from a child into a young man, and some of them are pretty fucked. In the new show, we've not yet seen how this relationship dynamic transfers to Fiona, but it's clear that neither her or Cake want to see, oh my god, is that a fucking plant dispenser? Simon explains he'll begin teaching a class today at the wizard school relating to magic artifacts, similar to the one he used to teach before the Great Mushroom War. He then asks about the sweet spot, which Fiona says opens tomorrow. It's the place they've been running errands for, making flyers, grabbing $40 cocoa, Jesus Christ. Fiona finds Cake has used up all the flyers they just made to cover up a DJ Flame mural, and tells Simon she's gotta go.
Okay, have fun.
You too.
Pause. We are 11 minutes and 15 seconds into the first episode of the season, which was the usual runtime of one episode of the original show, and literally nothing has happened. Even in the first season, much more had happened by this point. We got a dream sequence, a montage setting up the more grounded world Fiona was living in, as well as her lack of motivation to hold a job, and Cake being weird about ice after having what we can guess is the same Winter King dream Fiona had. So far in this season, we've gotten a recap of the first, Fiona waking up for the day with Cake, the two running a few errands, and Cake getting Imkron's phone number. By 11 minutes in the original show, Finn and Jake reclaim the lost city of Butopia, Gunther conquers the entirety of Ooh because he wants to smash every bottle, and the Lich is defeated multiple times. The more episodic format delivered much more world building in a more fun way, with way more show than tell. You could argue that part of this is from the limited scope of a non-magical world, to which I'd disagree. It's the writer's choice to make a serialized experience versus an episodic one with serialization baked in. I'll bring up this problem more as we continue, because you could literally pack the majority of one of these conflicts into a single episode, but we're still setting the scene for the season by this point and need to travel a bit further before we can do that. We now follow Simon as he leaves an orange at Chusgoos's grave, having killed him in season 1 after using him as a magic battery.
Nothing rhymes with orange.
I know a rapper who would heavily disagree with this assertion. After leaving the fruit and continuing his way to school, a lion picks it up and runs off. This is a bit random, but to viewers of the original show, you might recognize this lion as the host of the Vampire King, turned back into a lion after he had Bonnie suck out all of his vampire essence. I'm gonna nitpick the fact this guy is still alive. It's been like 12 years since the original story, and he was probably already full grown by then, while lions don't live more than 10 to 15 years max, so he should probably be dead by this point. While running through the forest, he's chased down by Huntress Wizard, a character we've seen throughout the original show. There isn't too much on screen between Finn and her, but he at one point went on a 2-week-long trip to help her conjure the spirit of the forest using the flute playing abilities of his grass sword arm. He gets a smooch by the end of it, but Huntress says fear and sadness keep her from settling down, as she fears becoming too soft to stay relevant in the world she lives. She also gifted him him an elk heart on his 17th birthday, saying it held great emotional significance. You could say that she held him dear to her heart. I'm hilarious. In the last season of Fionna and Cake, Finn attempted to help Simon with his depression by taking him out on an adventure. After they fight a bear near the heart of the forest, they part ways, Finn saying he was going to find Huntress Wizard. And at the beginning of this episode, Marceline made a comment about those two being back on again. So we know they've dated in some capacity in the past. We then cut to Finn in a cave, looking worse for wear. He calls out for Huntress Wizard and hallucinates 3 versions of her surrounding him. One has the orange and squeezes it into his mouth. The actual Huntress Wizard shows up and shoots the lion, and we're shown the hallucinations were the Vampire King lion, the cow he originally bit, and an eagle. It's a bit of a strange scene, but I interpret it as this Vampire King lion still remembering Finn, who he's probably still on good terms with after Finn was willing to protect him from Marceline while surrendering, and returning the favor by trying to feed him. Offended by the arrowing, the lion fucks off with the eagle. Huntress quickly realizes that Finn isn't just being lazy, he's been poisoned, and this sets off the B-plot of the season. We cut back to Fionna making her way to the sweet spot, a dilapidated patch of grass on a street corner that Gary and Marshall have turned into a spot for a bakery. Something that sort of pisses me off is that both Gary and Marshall have had their voice actors swapped out, from Andrew Rannells and Donald Glover to Harvey Guillen and Chris Collins. Huntress Wizard was also replaced, originally being voiced by Jenny Slate in her main appearances, as well as in season 1 of Fionna and Cake. But this season, she's been replaced with Ashley Birch, the voice of a number of side characters in the original series. It's almost poetic that the unneeded season, which I feel is skinwalking a beloved franchise, ended up not even keeping a lot of the original voice cast they chose. Hunter comes by to give Fionna a bush of white roses for the sweet spot. Don't fucking hold it like that, stupid. They try to make this a cute moment where Hunter is like, "You're bleeding. Let me touches you onto hand." But guys, where the fuck did the plant go? You wasn't even holding that shit right in the first place, which is why your hand is all cut. This is also probably supposed to be a subtle visual parallel to Finn's injury in Ooh, of which Huntress Wizard is currently trying to treat. Also, while we're here, why the fuck is Marshall's car up on this raised platform for literally no reason? I don't mean how it got up there, it was probably Cake who did it, but why? What purpose does sticking your functional van in a non-functional spot serve? We aren't supposed to think about it though, it's quirky and fun. We get a montage of the gang setting up decorations for the sweet spot. While back in Ooh, Huntress's efforts aren't getting her anywhere. She tries to get info out of Finn on what poisoned him, but all he manages to say is he fought a bear with Simon. We then cut to a dream sequence of Fionna and Cake defending the same tower as in the TV show she was watching. But when the two defeat everyone, they turn out to be her friends, as well as Martin, who died to protect her in Vampire World. This dream is supposed to showcase her guilt and trauma from how useless she felt in the first season, something that started after the Winter King incident. She was given a magical sword and was basically living out her fantasy of killing monsters without consequences. But in reality, those fantasies aren't real, while the consequences are. She was really only harming innocent candy people, and when they move on to the vampire world, she was practically useless. The consequences of her actions being what got Martin killed. She's subconsciously worried about hurting the rest of her friends further than already happened during the Scarab fight, which is probably why she's overcompensating by acting as their wallet, turning down payment for all the shit she just bought for the sweet spot. They also see this slimy bird, which everyone was confused about for the longest time. I don't blame anyone who's forgotten about this character. He's actually from the Winter King's court, only shown for a couple seconds on screen. It should also be noted that Fionna and Cake still share dreams like in the first season, as they're both waken up by Queenie, who reveals she's actually the owner of this plot of land. She kicks them all off the property, setting up the main conflict for Fionna's half of the story. And half of the story is a bit of an understatement. Of this 24-minute episode, 5 minutes and 48 seconds of it has to do with the other side of the story, basically a fourth. Cutting back to Simon, he's beginning his class on the history of magic artifacts, using the same cringe puns he did before the Great Mushroom War. We get a cameo from Peppermint and his friends from the Wizard City story before Simon begins class. Now is when I must point out, the school is in Wizard City, and we've been told time and time again, only wizards are allowed in Wizard City, and if you're caught breaking that rule, you are turned into a stick? Why is Simon allowed to teach his class after losing his powers? Huntress Wizard smashes through the ceiling with Finn, asking Simon how he was poisoned. When Simon explains the thorns in the heart of the forest, she tells him to forget he ever heard about it before flying off again. Back in Fiona's world, Queenie has put up a fence, claiming everything they brought under her lot is now her property to pay for the back rent of them squatting. This story loosely parallels something we saw happen in the original show, Season 6, Episode 42, Hot Diggity Doom. The King of Ooh uses political savvy to convince the Candy people to vote him to the position of princess, usurping Bonnie, who ends up moving to an old cabin near Butterscotch Lake. This is until the King of Ooh is violently overthrown by Crunchy, who's actually done that more than once in the show. The episode ends with Huntress Wizard making her way to the heart of the forest, and as she approaches the thorny bush with a spile, the same mask-wearing bear appears behind her. End of episode. And that's all we get for the first 24 minutes of the show. Our two main plot points have been established, Finn's poisoning and Fiona's land dispute, neither of which are going to be resolved in any timely fashion. To me, it just feels so slow. We've accomplished nothing in a little over the time span of 2 Adventure Time episodes. But again, the format is no longer episodic, and as much as I think it suffers from that, of course you're not going to get much solved in the first episode of a serialized story, so we gotta really give it time to see if it picks up at all. Now on to episode 2, The Crocodile Who Bit a Log, which begins with a stylized retelling of Huntress Wizard's training under her mentor, the Spirit of the Forest. After at least a full year's training, she's completed her first rites, finally splitting a boulder with nothing but a reed. The Forest Spirit congratulates her as she removes a tooth of some sort from the stone, using it to cut off her own hand. The two head to the heart of the forest, which is the thorny bush Finn landed on. It's guarded by a witch wizard who addresses the Forest Spirit as Spirit Dream Warrior, something I'll need to talk about later. She's given permission to plant her hand under the tree and gains her magic powers, as well as her own mask, becoming a fellow green wizard. We then cut to Fiona world, and this crane is missing the craney bit for some reason. Fiona, Cake, Marshall, and Gary attempt to break onto Queenie's property to recover some of their stuff, but this fails after they knock a bunch of stuff over, and some bald guy in Groucho glasses comes out to stop them. After Cake is insulted, she tries punching him, but her hand is burnt because this guy is actually Cairo Siphon, one of the cosmic entities the Scarab contained in Season 1, who was freed at the end of the last season and began working at a tea shop in Fiona world, something he liked doing and originally abandoned his cosmic post for. Well, now he's been fired from that job and is working as muscle for Queenie.
Yeah, I get it, man. Jobs are a farce.
How does saying that make any sense to the guy who actively has a job now? Also, why does he need a job? He's a bit of fire. I really don't like how Cairo Siphon's happy ending of finally being able to do the thing he wanted is ruined for no other reason than because they wanted the gang to run into him during this conflict. There's then a short Looney Tunes-esque chase scene, and the gang scampers off. Back with Huntress Wizard, we learn the bear is actually Witch Wizard, the one responsible for guarding the heart of the forest. This is something you could have picked up on from her mask and the stylized retelling. Witch Wizard figures out Huntress is trying to tap the heart of the forest, an act seen as heresy. A fight breaks out, with Witch Wizard accusing Huntress of being a traitor for telling Finn about the heart, while Huntress argues she told him so he'd stay away. Technically, he wandered there semi-accidentally because he walked there blindfolded. A callback to one of the worst episodes for Finn, and one of the best in the show, where he spends years trapped in a dungeon where if he opened his eyes, he'd be sent back to the same moment inside. Eventually, Huntress outsmarts the Witch Wizard, who tells her something catastrophic could happen if she taps the tree. She does it anyways, and after collecting a small sample to make some sort of antidote, the heart starts uncontrollably spewing everywhere. Trying to remove the spile only makes it worse, causing a massive gash in the plant, which turns out to not be a simple plant. The heart of the forest is actually a giant deer creature of some sort, and the bush she tapped was its head. This guy looks absolutely fucked. Huntress definitely messed something up as her mask vanishes, and her powers cease to work. The other green wizards appear just in time to see the heart of the forest start imploding into itself, turning into some sort of portal and draining everyone of their powers. They all begin attacking Huntress, and one of the best jokes up to this point in my opinion is after this guy here, who has some sort of green knife magic, loses his powers.
We'll have to go analog.
Good meme. Huntress is overwhelmed by the attacks after slipping on the sap and is nailed right in the shoulder by a dynamite knife, which shoves her into the portal. The editing on this shot of Witch Wizard outside the portal is really bad. Instead of having the ground and her on one layer that we are moving away from, she's on a separate layer and is being rescaled at an incorrect rate, making it look like she's shrinking on the ground. Huntress is pulled into some sort of gravity-free, vine-filled dimension. Before she has time to process anything, the knife in her shoulder explodes. Bits of Huntress flying everywhere. The show then cuts to Fionna and the gang at a bar, the OO equivalent being the Candy Tavern. And this universe's root beer guy is a woman named Ruby. Like most of the Fionna World cameos, she has basically nothing that relates her to our OO counterpart, nor is she touched on much, which isn't usually a problem for random background characters, but it feels a bit worse when it's someone as loved as Root Beer Guy, who had an amazing arc in the original show. First as a struggling writer, until he's promoted to captain of the Banana Guard for solving the case of Princess Bubblegum's kidnapping, and he eventually saves the entire Candy Kingdom by sacrificing himself to contain Darren. He's later brought back to life as a zombie called Dirt Beer Guy, whose widow gives him another chance to get to know her again. Fionna had also worked here, and because she kept breaking all the bottles with her flair, Ruby is still quite peeved. Cake's hand was pretty badly burnt by a Cairo siphon, and Fionna asks her not to try and fight him again to avoid getting hurt. Who the fuck are you? Fionna apologizes to Gary and Marshall for apparently having recommended the spot.
I mean, technically, we did squat there.
Yeah, but the whole concept of ownership is jacked.
Every time this guy opens his mouth, he says something stupid. What are you, a libertarian? An anarchist? If either of those were the case, then Queenie stealing your shit would be fair game since she has the muscle to do so. Shut the fuck up. Your angst isn't cute, it's grating. Marshall has to ask the question of where he's going to live now.
You could always, stay at my place.
Wait, you have your own place and you were making your boyfriend sleep in a van? Jesus Christ. I know you're trying to make a cutesy moment here, but the implications are insane. Who just lets their significant other be unhoused like that? Fionna asks about the bakery plan, and while Gary says Queenie won this one, she sees a clip of Cheers that motivates her to continue fighting to get the sweet spot back.
Unstoppable!
Why would you do that? Cutting back to the interesting story, Simon is having his students help try and find any information on the heart of the forest, while on the phone explaining the situation to Bonnie.
No mention of a heart, but check it. This stendo!
Oh my god, you sound terrible. Here's a voice actor they should have swapped out. As I explained earlier, Peppermint Butler turned into Peppermint, a younger version who had to go back to wizard school. His voice actor was changed for the role to reflect the character becoming a child again. The problem is, his voice actor appears to have gone through puberty since then, and their solution was to use voice modulation to try to make him sound younger. Bonnie then sends an ambulance that crashes through the school, and the Banana Guards then call for another to pick them up. It's a pretty funny joke and all, but guys, wizards only, fools. The entry of this place is literally a cliffside unless you're a wizard and know the code. Princess Bubblegum was sent to prison for breaking in. You're turned into a stick if you're any less cool than a princess. Why are Banana Guards able to get into the city even to make this joke? Back at the property dispute, Fiona's plan is to use the Vampire World tank to take out Cairo Siphon, but she immediately gives up on this idea after they see Queenie is selling the property, and they could all just buy it. Yep, the mildly interesting land dispute problem has now been turned into them trying to scrounge the funds to purchase the land. Also, because she wanted to borrow the tank, she now has to watch baby Finn, who's originally from Baby World, and after being stranded in Vampire World and the tank, Prismo brought him and the tank to help out. Wait, the tank got fucked in the Vampire World. I just remembered that. That's another. We're 40 minutes into this season and we've already lost steam on this side of the multiverse. This is as we cut to a memory of Finn telling Huntress he's thinking of dying soon, but that he'll never forget about her when that happens. Bam, back to Huntress, who is somehow still alive as a disembodied head inside whatever dimension she portaled to. Her pieces are then touched by the branches of this place and turned into seeds, before being blown away into different dimensions. Huntress now has an astral form floating through the viney space. We'll talk about this space a bit more later because while the concept is interesting, the retcon is weird and unneeded. At the same time, Fionna is asking Simon what the hell an APR is, not knowing anything about how to get a loan or purchase land, all while Simon is heading with Finn to Bonnie to try to find a cure for his poisoning. Back in the vine space, Huntress Wizard can hear a ton of different things coming from the thorny growths on the vines, each being an entry to a different universe. She can also hear the voice, voice, as it's credited at the end of the episode, played by Sean Rohani,
Oh, a visitor.
otherwise known as the guy who replaced Prismo's voice actor in the first season, for the sole reason that no one thought to ask the original voice actor if he wanted to voice the character again. After everyone collectively went what the fuck at the decision to replace Prismo's voice actor, he was brought back for this season, while Sean got the role of this new voice. The voice tells her if she wants to leave, she just has to choose which direction to grow. So she begins listening to all the different universes, and upon hearing Simon's voice talking about Finn, she mistakes that dimension as Ooh and chooses to grow there. Little did Huntress know, she heard Simon over the phone from Fionna World, and now she's stuck as a seed on Fiona's jacket, unable to move or do anything. Baby Finn tries to commit face on floor, but Fionna stops him just in time and begins projecting all of her issues onto him, talking about how no one taught him anything, but that if he doesn't get his shit together, everyone will leave him. Jesus Christ, Fionna. At the same time, Huntress has sprouted a root, using it to climb into a potted plant, but judging by her new roommate's status, I don't think she's going to be doing so well. And that's how the episode ends, with a shot of Finn being brought to the Candy Kingdom. So to recap, in this episode, Fionna and the gang try and break into Queenie's property and fail, then they decide to try and buy it. In Ooh, Huntress Wizard breaks all the rules to tap the heart of the forest for Finn, where it's shown it's not just a bush, but a deer-like creature, think like that boss from Elden Ring. It turns into a portal to some sort of branchy dimension that's also a portal to other universes, and though Huntress's body is destroyed in this place, she's able to regrow from a seed that got shot into Fionna World, and is now stuck in a pot. As you can tell by the Fionna recap being no longer than 20 words, the Huntress Wizard side of the story definitely has more going on, and overall is much more interesting. But now as Fionna and Huntress's stories begin to intersect, she's now been banished to the potted plant, meaning we're probably going to get way less of her side of the story till she can get out of there. It's also hard to see where things are going by this point because we've yet to establish some of the rules here, and because the pacing of the season is terrible, the rules aren't going to finish being established for quite a few episodes. Episode 3, The Lion of Embers, begins with what could be interpreted as either another dream sequence or a past adventure from when Fiona's world was magical, or maybe a combination of both. Hare and Cake are fighting the Ice Queen to save Flame Prince. Fionna eventually uses Cake as a mace to take her down, which works but injures Cake in the process. This is why the scene reads as another dream, because a lot of Fiona's dreams have to do with guilt about hurting the people around her, though this could also just be writing into her character that she has in the past hurt her friends while pursuing the people she's in love with, something that's going to become a very big point later on in the show. Fionna rescues FP and kisses him, which causes the room they're in to start melting. As they escape, an icicle falls, but before it lands on her, we get a wipe transition to the unmagical Fionna World, sometime before the events of season 1. She's late to work and pushes an already knocked over DJ Flame onto the ground again. He calls her a jerk before gawking at her outfit. This is supposed to set up the relationship of Fionna and DJ Flame that's going to be touched on later in the episode. There's also a hint here that it took place before Fionna adopted Cake, who's seen scrounging through the trash before following Fionna because she's got a tasty looking sandwich. We then cut to the gang on the phone with Queenie, who wants $50,000 for the sweet spot. Because Fionna pissed her off, they need the money by the weekend, or she's turning it into a parking lot. So the group decides to put together a fundraiser, one Marshall reluctantly agrees to play at. Meanwhile, Huntress Seed is struggling to get any bit of water, almost succeeding with a makeshift water catcher. Good try, buddy. Baby Finn then almost eats her until getting yoinked up and taken back to Pep Tank. We then cut to Prismo and the Cosmic Owl, watching the whole thing from the time room, having bet on what was about to happen. Scarab, who's now a lackey of Prismo thanks to him putting in a good word after trying to destroy Fionna World, asks Prismo why he doesn't just handle Huntress being crossed over. She is in the wrong universe after all. Just gonna let that one breathe for a second. Prismo says it's not in his jurisdiction because the forces that brought her there are beyond the multiverse, and Prismo pulls up a map of the multiverse to demonstrate. Threaded throughout it is some green stuff that looks like vines, and he says that's what Huntress Wizard is dealing with, so he can't help, for some reason. To be blunt, This is pretty stupid. Why are we still pretending crossovers matter? Baby Finn is right there, so is Pep Tank. Both of them came from different universes. There's also no actual explanation for why Prismo can't move her. She's not in that viney space, she's another person inside of another universe. It's been shown that he's able to move people to whatever universe he wants whenever, like he did in the finale of the last season. Is it within his jurisdiction to move anything wherever else as long as it doesn't touch this portal? You gotta see how little sense this makes. Back in Ooh, Finn is tested on by Bonnie, who says he's definitely being killed by the poison, but is also somehow being kept alive. Bonnie takes more samples, which includes sticking this corkscrew in his fucking ass. Why is it shaped like that? Outside, tons of princesses have heard, wait, why were they too lazy to shade the rest of Marceline's body? She'd be dead right now because the sun is touching her. Outside, tons of princesses have heard the news of Finn's death-like sleep, and have arrived to give him a true love's kiss to wake him. We get the laziest animated fight in existence, as all the princesses want to be the one to kiss Finn, while Bonnie blows off the idea as being nonsense. Back in Fionna World, Fionna asks Hunter to use the park as a cheap venue, and while he can't authorize that, he says he can talk to the parks committee to hear her out. After getting hit by a tree branch because she doesn't listen, Fionna runs off, bumping into DJ Flame, who's shirtless jogging in the park. We also learn his name is Felix.
Sorry again.
I'm tough. I'm a tough guy.
This is a reference to Season 6, Episode 12, Ocarina, where Jake's son Kim Kil-wan takes over the treehouse and says all they can afford to rent is the ladder, which Finn just accepts and tries to sleep on.
You're gonna sleep like that?
Yeah, man, it's tough. I'm a tough kid.
It honestly feels super forced in this context, like they just wanted another reference from the original show.
I'm tough. I'm a tough guy.
A, not a guy. B, bad response to an apology. Small talk is had about Fionna saving the world, and Felix releasing a new song that's gotten pretty popular. Fionna says she hasn't heard it, and is invited to his show that night. When she says the venue is too pricey to get in, Felix offers to put her on the guest list. It's very obvious that despite him breaking up with her over text, Fionna is still super into this guy, and it's sure to cause problems down the road. But again, I must reiterate, literally nothing has happened in this fucking story. Plans to open a bakery, land dispute, fundraising to buy the land. Now a subplot about DJ Flame is being introduced. We're almost an hour into the season and nothing has happened. Back anew, the princesses have broken into the castle, brutalizing some of the banana guards. With no one knowing where or what Huntress Wizard is up to and Bonnie getting nowhere, Marceline suggests they give the kiss idea a try. And we get one of the worst delivered jokes ever.
A kiss can't bring somebody back from the brink of death.
That's not what you told me last night.
I did say that.
This is a sexual innuendo that absolutely feels forced, because who the fuck would ever say those exact words in that context, mid-humpening? But ignore that. The entire thing is ruined by Bonnie speaking again. Look, I'll re-edit this joke to be funnier.
A kiss can't bring somebody back from the brink of death.
That's not what you told me last night.
See how something as simple as not saying "you're right" at the end of the joke can make the joke land better? Back in Fionna World, Cake is working on a poster for the Sweet Spot fundraiser, but can't stop thinking about Imkron. So she texts him asking to hang out. After he responds, she freaks out and asks a gender-swapped cinnamon bun what a good date idea is. This gender-swapped version of cinnamon bun is sort of annoying to me. Our Ooh version of this character started as another stupid candy citizen, but actually had a pretty crazy arc, leaving his old life behind to become the champion of Flame Princess and saving her from overthrow at the hands of Flame King and Don John. In Fionna World, he's just been turned into an old lady because his face looks wrinkly, I guess. Another L on this side of the multiverse. Female Cinnamon Bun tells her that a good idea for a date is to go dancing, and Fionna runs in saying they're going dancing. This scene is pointless and we could have just completely skipped to them in line at the club. We get more Cake shape-shifting as a curvy woman to impress the human who is interested in fucking a cat. Put this man on a list, and Fionna herself is overdressed, trying to look good for DJ Flame. Cake not aware that he's playing at the club they're going to. Once they get inside, we get a cameo from DJ Slime, the Ooh counterpart being Elder Plops, religious leader of the slime people, who was also a DJ during the Elementals incident. Once DJ Flame comes out, Cake immediately takes Fionna into the bathroom to scold her, reminding us that DJ Flame broke up with her over text.
He only broke up with me because his feelings were getting too real and he was afraid.
massive amounts of cope, and Cake says it's a bad idea for her to try to pursue him again. Fionna rebuts by saying Cake doesn't know anything about relationships, which is true, she's a goddamn cat, but Fionna is obviously in the wrong here and being stupid. Imkron texted Cake that it's too loud and that he's leaving, and Cake storms off to chase after him. I just gotta say, if you were invited to go dancing, did you not expect it to be loud inside this club? They spell it out for us in a very cheesy way that we're not supposed to like DJ Flame here. The people we like don't like him. So when he's introduced on stage, the people we like cover their ears because it's too loud. They spell it out with all the subtlety of a brick to the face. With Cake and Imkron gone, Fionna heads back out to watch DJ Flame, who turns down the music, telling everyone his girl is here, and Fionna immediately assumes it's her. But then he pulls up a woman who looks exactly like Fionna, but with green hair and a green outfit. Watching the two kiss mentally fucks Fionna, and she spends the rest of the night getting drunk. This character is the Fionna world equivalent to Fern, an extremely complicated character from the original series. Back when Finn and Jake created a time paradox to bring Prismo back to life, it was done by putting Jake to sleep to create the dream that is Prismo. But first, a version of Jake needed to be woken up by Finn, while the next version would be left asleep forever. This means that the next version of Finn needed to be interrupted from waking Jake up. When this happened, that version of him turned into the Finn sword, which housed the soul of this time paradox Finn inside of it. And because of this, Finn had an insane amount of skill using the sword. Before this, he had a grass sword cursed to his right arm, and after he lost that arm, the flower that appeared grew into a new one, the thorn in his palm acting as a defense mechanism, attacking whenever Finn felt threatened. After losing the Finn sword on a bridge, it's found by Bandit Princess, who begins harming the innocent with it, while Finn is sent psychic signals about what's happening. In the final battle against Bandit Princess, the grass sword emerges, but during the battle, the Finn inside the sword is stabbed and presumably killed. This really fucks Finn up for a while, but eventually, while fighting a rogue Susan Strong, the grass hand almost kills her, before instead latching onto the Finn sword, creating a grassy version of him, who would later go on to be called Fern. This grass version is a combination of the Finn inside the sword and the curse from the grass sword, the latter making the body while the former's memories are maintained. This causes a lot of conflict as Fern struggles with existence as a curse that was made for no other reason than because a grass wizard thought it'd be a cool idea. Because his body isn't really human, he can't really sleep, he can't eat, and he has to live with the psychological problems that come from watching someone else step into and take over his life. This leads to immense jealousy until eventually Fern tricks Finn, trapping him in a ziggurat to take his place in life back. Finn breaks out and fights Fern, accidentally killing him, which messes him up even more.
I know that look. You just killed someone.
He's later brought back by Uncle Gumbald as the Green Knight, a reference to Arthurian lore. Finn's 17th birthday party starting off with a reference to the Green Knight's Christmas challenge of striking him once with his own axe. Finn and Fern eventually overcome the curse by the end of the series, but with no body, Fern dies and is replanted where the treehouse used to be, sprouting up anew, along with another Finn sword, which Shermie would claim 1,000 years later. As you can tell by this very long aside, there's a lot of deep lore surrounding the character of Fern. So what about the Fionna world equivalent? So get this, she looks like Fionna, but green. I swear to God, that's all there is. Reboots of beloved shows are always difficult to watch because the nature of writing something different from something familiar feels strange, but it's even stranger what's going on here. This isn't a reboot, it's another universe, but everything in Fionna's world just feels so empty and devoid of meaningful lore. It can be argued that's because Prismo ripped off the main universe without much thought, but this is merely an explanation, not an excuse for how terrible it ends up being to sit through. Also, her name is Fennel, because that's a plant name. I would be so pissed if someone named me Fennel, bro. Holy shit. Cutting to Huntress, water is dripping from the ceiling, but she still can't reach it. She takes a little nap and is transported to the dream space, a not very touched upon area between reality and unconsciousness. That also has some connection to the astral plane, and is home to Spirit Dream Warrior. We first saw this character in Season 4, Episode 21, Who Would Win, after the boys are knocked out while fighting the farm. He calls himself Dream Warrior and is voiced by Matthew Broderick, giving Finn and Jake proverbial instructions on how to defeat the farm with cheap fighting tactics. Later in season 7, episode 25, Flute Spell, we're introduced to the spirit of the forest. That's how he's credited at the end of the episode, and he's also voiced by Matthew Broderick. Due to their similar appearances, it was debated if they were the same person or not, or at least related somehow. The new show retcons the spirit of the forest into Spirit Dream Warrior, ending the debate entirely, as well as making him a less important character than he already was, with the new Heart of the Forest stuff taking over whatever nature mythos they got going on here. Huntress asks Spirit Dream Warrior to help figure out how to get back to the root space so she can get back to Ooh. Because he only gives dream advice and coded messages, he tells her to follow the beat to the root. He uses a hoe to get underground, and a broken tool seeks the flame. I'm not gonna say it, guys, but the way people are interpreting this message is not very girl boss. Next, we cut to Finn getting molested by every princess in Ooh and hopes some sort of miracle will happen. Simon does not feel great about the idea, but Marceline gives the best defense of molestation in the history of ever.
Think of it as magic CPR. Is CPR wrong?
I want to argue with this, but just kind of got a point. Bam! Flame Princess enters, wearing a fancy suit of armor. Having heard about Finn's condition, and despite their past, she's arrived to attempt a true love's kiss. The first and last time the two kissed was insane. Flame Princess herself represents passion, and being literal fire, not only is touching her not a good idea, but her elemental matrix is so unstable that something as simple as a romantic kiss could cause her to burn so hot that she'd melt through the Earth's core. Something barely avoided in season 4 episode 16, Burning Low. Guys, I was with you on the CPR argument, but how's lighting his fucking face on fire a good idea? We see later in the episode that it didn't work, but she didn't burn through the Earth's crust, either because she's more stable as an adult, or maybe because of the suit of armor she's wearing. But she does light the place on fire a bit, and only manages to burn Finn's lips. The entire kiss plot is just filler to begin with. We are getting nowhere on this side of the story. It is much better than Fiona's side, as she drunkenly wanders into the park, spots Hunter, starts complaining about her DJ Flame issues, and eventually tries to kiss him. Hunter rebuffs Fiona, saying he likes her, but she's drunk, so she can't be thinking clearly. During this attempted kiss, she sees a flash of the Winter King, still having some sort of trauma related to his death. This scene is meant to directly contrast the last, with Finn's unconscious molestation being nothing more serious than a decent attempt at saving his life, compared to Fiona, whose attempt to drunkenly make out with someone could be classified as sexual assault. This is because something like a true love's kiss is an acceptable concept in the magical world in which Finn lives, while in Fiona's world, it's just called rape. I also must address the elephant in the room created from this scene. When Fiona opens the door to the park shack, she sees Hunter putting a shirt on, and for a split second, you can see some sort of scar under his pecs. This was immediately noticed by fans to be similar to mastectomy scars, implying that Hunter is a female to male transgender character. From what I've noticed, this is almost certainly the case. Why did they choose to do this? The answer is, there is no reason. It has zero effect on the story, and one of the queer writers on the show probably just threw it in to bump the representation numbers up. Funny enough, by the time of writing this, the show has won a horrendously named Velma Award, named after the same Velma series that is awful in literally every single way, but had enough checkboxes ticked when it came to queer representation that someone thought to name an entire group of awards after it. This season won the, quote, most fabulous celebration of all the shades of queerness award, which, you guessed it, requires you do nothing more than have enough different types of queer characters in your show. But with the way they snuck this in here, these few pixels being the only reference to this character being trans, it's really only a step above J.K. Rowling saying Dumbledore was gay after she was already done writing the books. And again, because this has no actual effect on the story, no more really needs to be said about it than this. Back in Ooh, Bonnie puts out the completely inconsistent fires started from Flame Princess's kiss, and Muscle Princess, whose voice actor has also been swapped for no reason, comes in as more plot contrivance. She rushes Finn to get her turn. Simon tries to stop her because Finn's lips are burnt, and instead of just throwing him out of the way, she picks him up and begins shaking him above her head. Simon's phone falls out of his pocket, which needs to happen for the next scene, and the Enchiridion spawns straight out of his ass. It honestly looks terrible, like the phone and stuff just spawn in front of him while he's being shaken. Like I said, the Enchiridion falls out of his ass, and Bonnie gets the idea to use the Gems of Power to get to Prismo's time room and wish Finn to be healthy. Now this Enchiridion is not the main timeline version, it's Farm World's, taken by Finn after the crossover incident and later given to Betty during Elements. It was later given back to Finn by Ice King and somehow made its way back to Simon before the events of Season 1, where it was used as part of his spell to try to get back to Betty. When I tell you we're about to see the dumbest cop-out next episode as to why this won't work, I truly mean it. Cutting back to Fiona, she's made it home and tries to call Simon, who doesn't answer because he dropped his phone. She cries about the fact he's living in a magical world and that while she saved hers, she's still a loser in it. Noticing the pot Huntress is in, she laments not even being able to keep a plant alive and begins crying over it. The teardrops begin falling around Huntress, and as one hits her, she's now been watered enough to not die, just as Fiona passes out. Big problem here though, if you're a plant owner, comment below. Can you use salt water on your potted plants? Last I checked, there's this thing called osmosis, and it's pretty well understood that salt water will actually dehydrate your plants. This single drop of water should have been game over for Huntress. The last scene of the episode is completely out of left field, as we cut to the dream of Big Destiny, the gang leader from Farm World. He's a shepherd overseeing his flock, protecting it from a wolf in the grass. He then sees the cosmic owl before a sheep version of his son comes out of the wolf's mouth, biting off his head. Destiny then wakes up and is killed by his son, Peanut. I almost liked this part, but almost all the meaning is stripped away by it being completely spelled out for us. It's written like a parable, but at the same time, they're afraid you're too stupid to get what's being said. So it's also written like a stage play. You see guys, the sheep represents his flock, which is his gang. That might be too complicated for you to understand, so we're just going to turn them into his gang, so you're not confused. This sequence is supposed to demonstrate the phenomenon known as croak dreams, something well understood by Adventure Time fans. The first mentioned croak dream is in Season 3, Episode 18, The New Frontier. In the world of Adventure Time, premonition dreams are real and involve seeing the cosmic owl while dreaming. A croak dream is a subset of this phenomenon that shows you how you're meant to die. Jake sees the cosmic owl in a dream about dying in space and spends the rest of the episode attempting to let destiny take its course, only for the premonition to be slightly off, it not being in space but in water, and also not being a croak dream as far as we're aware. We'll get more into the cosmic owl later in the season, but for now, you only need to understand that he's a cosmic being whose job is to show up in dreams whenever he's called to. And this is how the episode ends, with Prismo and the Scarab watching Destiny's murder. Like I predicted in the last episode, Huntress being stuck in the pot has completely stunted any progress on her end, while the sweet spot issue is no closer to being addressed than the faint mention of a fundraiser idea. The pacing gets no better from here, and relationship drama is going to slow it even further. Now on to episode 4, The Cat Who Tipped the Box. If you're wondering, these titles might sound pretty artsy, but they mean legitimately nothing. The first episode's title just means Fiona and Huntress. The second refers to Witch Wizard, who literally bites a log during her fight with Huntress, and the third simply refers to DJ Flame. I give you one chance to tell me what this title could possibly be referring to. The inner machinations of these writers' minds are truly an enigma. This episode starts with more stylized backstory of Huntress Wizard showing a hunter and his wife living in a forest, until one day the hunter stumbles upon a little plant creature that absorbs nutrients through little roots on its hands. The hunter and his wife take in this creature and raise it as their child, a child that would one day become Huntress Wizard. Tragedy strikes in the form of lightning, setting the hunter's house on fire, killing both him and his wife, leaving the child on her own again. It's a pretty well done sequence, however little it helps the pacing problem. Next, we cut to Gary and Marshall shopping at Costco. Marshall gets a call from his mother, who heard he got kicked out of his squat spot. She begins to offer him help, but Marshall just hangs up, not wanting to deal with her. The relationship dynamic between Marshall and Miss Abadir is something the season is going to sprinkle bits throughout, and like the fennel problem, it's not going to have anywhere near the depth Marceline and Hudson Abadir had in the original show. We're going to hold off on breaking it down until we get more of Marshall's story, but I promise you, it's not worth the wait. Next, we move to Fiona, who's gotten a voicemail from Hunter about her asking to use the park as a venue for the fundraiser. He set up a meeting with the parks committee for her to ask about it. Later in the shower, Fiona recovers from her drunken stupor while listening to the radio. DJ Slime says it wasn't long ago that DJ Flame was playing out of garages and that he's a PR whiz to to have blown up so fast. Fionna gets the idea to call him to help with the fundraiser, but she doesn't have his phone number since the last time she got a new one, so instead she's just gonna go walk around to the places he used to hang out. It is very clear Fionna has an unhealthy obsession with this guy, and it's gonna remain a theme throughout the entire season. Back in Ooh, we retcon how the farm world Enchiridion is supposed to be opened. Instead of requiring the gem of Billy, it now twists open like the Ooh version did. Honestly, I'm not even that mad. If this means we can get to Prismo and wish Finn back to health, then I'll take it.
So lately, I'm having kind of a wish-granting problem. Sorry, guys. I got no wish Zazzle left.
Oh my god. The mighty Prismo, who has been making wishes for millennia, suddenly just lost the power to grant wishes? They destroyed the Enchiridion, and we didn't even get an explanation for why Prismo's powers aren't working. This is so bad it reminds me of that Family Guy episode where they plan to kill Peter to write him off the show, and start listing all the ways it's not a fake out and can't be undone.
Oh, I know. Stewie's gonna fire up his time machine and undo this.
Brian, bad news. My time machine got a virus that causes Dad to die again if it's ever used.
I bet this is all Chris's dream.
Wow, I am wide awake.
The writers unironically decided to do this, but in slow motion, because they're not going to be done confirming that wish magic doesn't work anymore until the very end of episode 5. Back in Fionna world, Cake comes in through Fiona's window to say she accepted the drunk apology for ruining her date with Imkron. I'm not sure if this is a popular opinion, but Fionna didn't ruin shit. If her inviting you to go dancing was doomed to fail because the act of entering a nightclub is too overstimulating for you, you shouldn't have accepted the invite in the first place. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with my argument there, because I honestly feel like Cake is more in the wrong for abandoning Fionna, who she knows had an unhealthy obsession with DJ Flame, to drunkenly wander home by herself. This scene is also the start of a Cake side plot that spans 3 minutes and 30 seconds throughout this episode, that does nothing to further the plot, or anything else for that matter. It starts with her spotting a mouse, her feline instincts immediately taking over, licking her lips at the thought of eating it. She then resists this urge before getting a phone call from the talent coordinator of Cheers. He says his name is GF, and he's the gender-swapped version of Gridface Princess, a minor character from the original show who had some level of technological know-how, creating the force field used to contain Darren the Ancient Sleeper, in the same episode Root Beer Guy is killed in. He asks if Cake would like to guest star on the show, and she accepts, so she could save the sweet spot herself with a cameo appearance. Meanwhile, Huntress is set upon by a hungry-looking snail, and escapes the pot just in time to kill it, absorbing its nutrients and growing a little bigger. She then grabs a needle and begins hunting the mouse for food. At the same time, Fionna is wandering the streets while thinking back to the passionate relationship between her and Felix, which included an insanely unnecessary ass grab by her. Guys, what are we doing here? I know you think it's cool to throw in cuss words and adult themes like date rape into the successful IP you're taking over, but come on, have a bit of class. I also just noticed, why is one of her legs extremely large? In the modern day, the apartment she remembered DJ Flame living in is nothing more than rubble from the Scarab fight. We could read deeper meaning into this. DJ Flame's moved on while Fionna is stuck in the past, and this is continued when she remembers a music store she briefly worked at, flirting with Felix while on the clock, but in the present the store is now empty. Next, she remembers working on the boardwalk, meeting DJ Flame just after getting fired. The two go on the big wheel, as it's called, and have a romantic moment at the top after it gets stuck. As we're shown, this universe's Starchy broke the lever. In modern day, it's shut down, a sign on the fence asking if anyone's seen the person who broke it. I noticed another continuity error here. Starchy breaks the lever, then it cuts to a far shot, and the lever is still there. Then as we fade to the current day, the lever is still clearly there, until we get a close-up shot again where it's broken. Continuity errors aren't usually that big of a deal, especially in cartoons where they're pretty common. I actually remember picking out an episode of Adventure Time to show my dad, season 5 episode 39, We Fixed a Truck, because he's a lifetime mechanic and I thought he'd find the episode funny. He did, but he also was able to point out the continuity error of the cylinder block they were specifically fixing through the episode, disappearing as they put the cylinder head back on the truck. But that little animation error didn't actually have an effect on the episode. Fionna runs into Hunter and Fennel, and after an awkward moment relating to the thought of the night before, more, Fionna is officially introduced to Fennel, who comes off as very kind, much different than her Fern counterpart. The two were hoping to go on the wheel, and Fennel makes a comment about her and DJ Flame always going on the wheel every time they'd come to the boardwalk. This was definitely written to upset Fionna because she was just reminiscing about doing that with Felix, and now she's been replaced by Fennel, who does the same stuff she used to with him. But whoever wrote this seems to have forgotten the beginning of the scene implies that the big wheel had been broken since DJ Flame and Fionna met. The handle there is still fucked. The reason it was written to be broken was to match the theme of the other two memories, that being Fionna's past relationship with DJ Flame, while a fond memory is nothing more than a memory, just like the apartment building, the record shop, and the big wheel. But then they also want to rub Fennel's relationship with DJ Flame in Fionna's face, forgetting that the big wheel would have had to been broken the entire time Fionna and Flame were dating. You can argue that this maybe implies DJ Flame was always dating Fennel and cheated on her with Fionna. While they could have done this, it's not actually the case because Fennel seems surprised that the big wheel is closed, which wouldn't make sense if it's been shut down for the entire 6-month relationship Fionna had with DJ Flame, plus whatever time has passed since then and the first season. Hunter reminds Fionna about the Parks Committee meeting later that day, and she runs off to go get changed. Back with Cake, she's arrived at On the Grid Studios, meets Gridface, and is handed a very tiny script to start practicing her lines. Before it's revealed the cast of the show Cheers is actually a bunch of little people. Why? It's never explained. But again, if you pay attention to the writing, it's something necessary for later in the story. Another plot contrivance that feels completely disconnected from the non-magical world we've established. Fionna gets home and is immediately distracted by finding a tiny huntress wizard who's killed a handful of rats and grown a bit larger. Seeing she's hungry, Fionna gives her a sandwich, which she takes only the sliced meat from, before running out of the apartment. Huntress immediately gets got by a dog, and after Fionna injures the dog saving her, she's kicked right in the cooter. Huntress then tries to run into the street, but Fionna saves her just before she's hit by a car, and the two head to find some more food. I didn't mind this scene too much. It would make sense that Huntress doesn't know how roads and cars really work, and the classic comedy of a good groin kick is not lost on me. Back in Ooh, Simon heads to the new Ice Kingdom, a much less friendly looking place, and we get our first glimpse of what's become of Gunther since the finale. Gunther the Penguin is actually the Lovecraftian level Great One known as Orgalorg. He was banished by Glob to the planet Earth, the gravity of which squished him down into a penguin, making him forget his origins. The name Gunther is also the creation of the crown, the first wearer being an abused mutant dinosaur named Gunther, whose wish was to be like his master, the ice elemental Evergreen. The concept of the Ice King basically being a wish magic imitation of the original ice elemental, and the relationship with Gunther being another tacked on side effect. Every other person who wore the crown afterwards was then affected by that wish, while adding a bit of themselves to it. Simon even calling Marceline Gunther while wearing the crown. This new creature known as Ice Thing was created after the crown's wish magic was reset by Gulb. Gunther puts on the crown and wishes that he was the Ice King he knows, pretty much turning him into a copy of a copy. He still recognizes Simon as his father, and while crazy, the two seem to be on good terms. Ice Thing has even married Turtle Princess using a gem from his eye as the ring, which would eventually become the eye of Gibbon, the grandchild of Jake, and the brutal dictator from 1,000 years in the future, the gem giving him immortality. This scene is all basically fan service, showing us a little more of a character that had been hinted at as early as season 6 of the original show. I will say, I'm the target audience for this shit, so it was really nice to see Ice Thing. All we're here to do is ask to borrow the demonic wishing eye, another wish magic item from the original series, owned by Ice King and most notably used by Gunther to conquer all of Ooh during the bottle smashing binge. We don't get to learn if this works until the end of the next episode, because fuck pacing, guys. Back in Cake's C story, she's just getting off the phone with Fionna, who's informed her about the little plant person problem. She says she'll head over there as soon as she's done filming, and the show begins. It quickly becomes apparent that the entirety of the material written for Cake is about stretchy jokes, and for some reason this offends her to the level of blowing up on everyone, knocking the entire set of the show over and throwing the little people to the ground. See guys, the cat knocked over the box. Just like the title. I'm 14 and this is deep. Her cat instincts kick in and she pounces on Norm. After realizing what she's done, Cake snaps out of it, and as the audience begins booing her, she runs off set. I really don't know why any of this was needed, nor do I get exactly what the message here is supposed to be. Cake is one of the only magical creatures living in Fionna world, but she's also a cat. Why is she choosing to fight her cat side? It's implied that her motive is to impress Imkron, or maybe seem less like a cat so she can be with him, but why is she also upset about people wanting to see her stretch? The big connection back to her failing to fight the feline instincts is the cast, for literally no reason, being the size of mice. If they weren't, this moment just wouldn't have been possible. So again, I point out, we've thrown in the plot point that these guys are 3 inches tall, which is completely uncharacteristic to the world we've been shown, all to give us this nothing burger of a moment. Back with Fionna, she's taken Huntress to the grocery store, where she absorbs enough meat to be back to full size. Now having a full mouth, she's able to voice the realization that the Spirit Dream Warrior's message of follow the beat to the root was about finding the heart of the forest, so she runs off to try to locate it, starting with the trees in the park. Fionna and Cake chase after her, and after learning she's from Ooh, they ask to help her. She says no because her entire thing is doing stuff herself and not working with others. Fionna calls Simon and updates him on the situation, and after telling Huntress Finn's alive, Simon asks how she got there. She says she can't say because it's green wizards only. This pisses off Bonnie, who doesn't understand why she can't just at least tell them what poisoned Finn. Huntress then breaks the multiverse phone, and now we have no way for Fionna and Simon to communicate from their respective dimensions. Huntress passes out for some reason, which is really not explained. She's never seen stuffing her face as much as she just did, so why is she burnt out all of a sudden? As Fionna and Cake walk through the park, they run into DJ Flame on a jog. Fionna stops him to finally ask about sitting down to pick his brain about something. He says he can do lunch the next day and hugs Fionna, getting sweat all over her. Jesus Christ. Fionna looks way too happy after the interaction, while Cake looks exactly like me watching this entire season. As they return home, Cake gets a call from Hunter, who's wondering why Fionna missed the park's committee meeting he went out of his way to set up for her, and explains how the committee heard something about her running around naked in a grocery store. She tries to explain what happened, but the moment she mentions DJ Flame, Hunter shuts down the conversation, saying he really stuck his neck out for her and that he'll talk to her later. DJ Flame didn't relate to any of that, by the way. If she hadn't run into him, she'd literally have still been headed home to deal with Huntress. She literally should have just mentioned someone crossed over from Ooh, and I'm sure Hunter would understand. As Fionna tries to get into her apartment, her key fails to open the door, and she realizes she's been evicted, only just now remembering she still has to pay rent, as the episode ends. With the end of the 4th episode, we've still made very little progress, with over 13 minutes of this episode not furthering the plot whatsoever. That's without counting the almost minute-long intro in every episode. We get Huntress' backstory, which I liked, so I really don't think it's an issue. A minute 30 of Gary and Marshall buying ingredients, 3 minutes and 30 seconds of Cake's Cheers cameo, almost 5 minutes of Fiona's DJ Flame side plot, and almost 3 minutes of showing us wish magic isn't an option. Though as I explained earlier, we've got to drag that explanation out till the end of the next episode as well, since we haven't actually seen what happens if Simon tries to use the demonic wishing eye. Huntress Wizard is out of the pot, however, though she isn't in the correct dimension, and therefore she's gonna have a hard time furthering the goal of helping Finn. Fionna now being evicted also begs another question that we'll get to in the next episode, but it's also something that does help us more accurately guess how long it's been since the first season. Because Fionna acts shocked at the realization that rent is a thing that she has to pay for, it means that this season probably takes place no more than 60 days and no less than 30 days after the original show. The weirdest implication of this is the fact that Prismo can't do wish magic anymore as little as a month after the first season, which doesn't really make any sense. And as of writing this, it's not been explained why. Next, on to episode 5, The Butterfly in the River. Named that because there is, you guessed it, a butterfly and a river. Continuing the grading trend of starting each episode with a backstory sequence, this one is the least interesting and most unnecessary so far, as we're shown a flashback to Marshall's childhood, as his mind wanders while working on math questions. His chair creaking and doodling is quickly shut down by his mother, who just smiles and says no to him. After he starts tapping on the desk to make a beat, she hands him some money and kicks him out. This leads him to the park where he finds Simone, this world's Ice King counterpart. After trying to buy an ice cream and making a mess, he starts apologizing before Simone makes a mess too, telling him that that messes are welcome, before letting him play around on her keyboard. So we learn from this that Simone is a sort of surrogate mother to Marshall, similar to how Simon was a surrogate father to Marceline after the Great Mushroom War. Though in the modern day, when they were shopping at Costco, after bumping into him, Simone quickly runs off without saying a word. We didn't need to use 2 minutes to tell us Simon and Marshall had a mother-son relationship. Mr. Anks could have just made a passing line to Gary about how Simone was like a mom to him, but for some reason seems to be avoiding him nowadays, and turned 2 minutes into a few seconds. We don't need to be shown everything, especially with the limited runtime we have. We already know Hannah isn't a great mom. We can just as easily garner that info from Marshall's reactions to her so far. This is all ignoring how much less interesting this strained family dynamic is compared to Marceline and Hudson Abadir. Hudson is basically the ruler of hell, wanting nothing more than to steal souls and torture them for all of eternity, who wanted his daughter to take over the family business. So there is parallel here, but we were already shown this back in season 1, so why do we need any more of it? Cutting back to Fiona, she's staying at Cake's place, the apartment we saw she has in episode 1 of the season, just across the way from Fiona's. They have a joke here about how cats sleep everywhere but their beds, the place being full of dressers, but now is when we get to the question the last episode was begging me to ask. If Fiona can't afford her apartment, how the hell is Cake, a literal cat, affording her own apartment? The only time we saw her with any money was when that kid lost her shit and threw cash at her. Cash she didn't even take, by the way. Is she living off donations alone? They made a joke about APRs and escrows and stuff, but you're telling me someone approved to lease to a cat? Huntress is now fully clothed in her makeshift getup, and oh my god, look at the toilet. Cake, you absolute animal. The pipes are fucked, guys. There's no shot any of that is making it through. With the venue plan for the sweet spot now ruined, and Fiona evicted from her apartment, she believes she can fix all of it, but wants to prioritize helping Huntress, who's still gorging on inordinate amounts of ground beef. I must by this point ask why exactly she uses meat to grow as fast as she did, literally passing out every 5 seconds because she needed more food. But in her backstory, she ate an entire rabbit and didn't grow at all. Fiona asks Huntress what exactly she's looking for, and Huntress just all of a sudden has the loosest lips surrounding the heart of the forest.
It's the source of green magic. And also a portal.
You were literally just gatekeeping that info from Bonnie and Simon, saying it was Green Wizard's only information, but now you're just telling Fiona and Cake. Fiona says she doesn't know about any heart, but she can point Huntress to the oldest tree in the city. We then cut to an establishing shot of Gary's apartment building, where this specific bit of graffiti was lazily drawn atop the image and is overlapping the front of the building. This is going to be more useless side plot that leaves us no further along than before. Gary is working on pastries in the kitchen while Marshall is practicing his guitar. It's not going very well because the baking is pretty loud, so he instead asks to help out. Gary has him cut up some baking chocolate, but when Marshall starts cutting it in a way that Gary wouldn't usually do it, he says the same thing Marshall's mother would to him as a kid, a simple no-no. He then very politely asks Marshall if he could cut them into squares instead.
Aren't you just gonna melt them anyways?
Yes.
You little shit. They're doing nothing with this, by the way. In the main universe, Bonnie was practically the dictator of a totalitarian surveillance state and eventually had to come to terms with the fact her controlling nature wasn't the best way to do things. They don't explore any of this with Gary and Marshall. Their relationship is basically perfect. Gary saying no doesn't even fit into the conversation they're having. No, these are nice, but could you make them little squares? The no is not even a coherent part of that sentence, and is just thrown on top to make sure we understand Marshall's mommy issues are being triggered, because the writers think you, the viewer, are too stupid to figure that out unless there's a direct parallel. Because of how useless this scene is, I'm now going to point out all the lazy continuity issues we run into here. We have this far shot of the kitchen before cutting to the angle where Marshall is cutting the chocolate. It's to the left of the sink and would be right here from the long shot. In the same space, Gary is also working on some dough. Wait, why are we kneading dough? We're baking cookies. For some reason, mid-cut, the chocolate changes positions completely, the lower layer sliding further back than it's supposed to. After Gary takes the cutting board, we cut to an angle of Marshall apologizing, but instead of facing to the right where Gary was, he's now facing this direction, and the counter they were working on is now behind them. And when we pull back to the far shot, they've both just completely rotated to the incorrect counter, and the dough has vanished. Gary asks Marshall to fold napkin swans instead, saying his parents make them for the hotel they work at. He then mentions that Marshall hasn't met his parents, parents and invites him to come meet them later that night. That's right, we're sidetracking once more for a Meet the Parents B story. Gary's Ooh counterpart didn't have much of a family, having spawned from the mother gum during the early days of Ooh, alongside her brother Nettie, and later creating Uncle Gumbald, Aunt Lolly, and cousin Cheekley. All three of these family members are eventually turned into Dum-Dum Candy citizens after a failed overthrow of young Bonnie, and from that day the Candy Kingdom began. Compared to Bonnie, Gary has the least amount of backstory in the entire main cast, practically becoming a background character. At the same time, Fionna brought Huntress to the oldest tree in the city, the Willow. This tree is the Fionna world counterpart to Finn and Jake's treehouse, and will be the catalyst for an entire set of tomfoolery that does not further any bit of this story at all. Assuming this is the heart of the forest, Huntress immediately cuts off her hand to try to make a connection, which fails, meaning this probably isn't the heart. Fionna then gets a call from Marshall on Cake's phone, as well as a text from Gary. Both meet with her to talk about the invite to meet Gary's parents and how nervous they are. Nothing of value is garnered from these conversations, but we get a glimpse of someone watching Marshall and Fionna from the bushes. This person has been in the background of a lot of shots and was even in the flashback to Marshall's childhood. But because this show can't move more than a snail's pace, we won't be done explaining who this guy is until episode 7. Back with Cake and Huntress, Cake is specifically shown to be a reading of Human Bondage, a story about how our own unhealthy obsessions can become the chains that hold us back, rather than society itself being the problem, and that while pain is inevitable in life, ordinary happiness is better than achieving some grand destiny. Cake then gets a text from Mcron.
I saw you on Cheers. Kudos for standing up for yourself.
What do you mean standing up for herself? She almost ate a guy. Mcron asks if she wants to go out on another date, and she excitedly agrees. Luckily, this is a fake out, because while trying to figure out the magic she's feeling from this tree, Huntress blows on a leaf, crosses her eyes, and the willow begins vibrating and glowing. She whistles, it vibrates faster, and then she touches it as Cake puts her hand on Huntress's back, and the two are sucked into the tree. Most of this is completely out of the blue random. The only thing that tangibly relates to stuff we've previously seen is the crossing eyes. This is done most notably by Peppermint Butler, when helping Finn and Jake get to the afterlife to save the soul of Princess Bubblegum's plant they accidentally killed. There's no other relation to the eye crossing than that though, and in the original show it would actually open a physical path, while here the tree doesn't open up, it just begins glowing. Back with Fionna, she meets DJ Flame at the spot they planned for, and walk and talk about the sweet spot problem. Flame says he doesn't have any info on a venue, but that he's got her covered if she needs to borrow any equipment. Wait, are these gender swapped versions of the Farm World kids? How the fuck does that make sense? Fionna heads to Flame's studio, where he motivates a kid he's working with to give recording another go, and Fionna sits there as they record. Also, this entire time, it's never addressed, but Fionna decided to go out in a dress for this meetup, but her ass is just completely out because it's ripped in the back, so she's wearing a jacket around her waist to hide that fact. Again, it's never brought up. Back with Huntress and Cake, they've been transported into the tree, and for no explained reason, Cake is now Huntress's hand. Huntress can tell this isn't the vine space she was expecting, and after touching a glowing opening, the two are transported to what they think is Ooh, before realizing it's actually old Fionna world. They are traveling through the tree's memories, which is actually a pretty cool concept, until they ruin it later. Back to Gary and Marshall, they've arrived at Gary's parents' house, and we're introduced to Gertie and Gordy, the mother and father of Gary. There's no Ooh counterpart to these two characters, and this entire scene is extremely drawn out and serves almost no real purpose. We learn Gary's nickname is Bubba, like bubblegum, which was actually my nickname as a baby. Where I'm from, any toddler under a certain age is Bubba, so it kind of just gets passed around to the youngest boy. They watch home videos of Gary baking, which segues into playing the keyboard, which leads to Gary's parents asking Marshall to play something for them. He immediately starts singing the song that Simone taught him and almost starts crying before food is announced to be ready. But what of Nettie, the lifeblood of the Candy Kingdom, and foil to Bonnie, a deeply vulnerable and anxious gum dragon whose needs are heavily representative of a low-functioning special needs sibling?
People get built different. We don't need to figure it out, we just need to respect it.
Well, his Fionna world counterpart, Nellie, is also implied to be special needs and spends all day on DeviantArt. Thank you, Fionna and Cake. Very cool. Back in the willow, Huntress still hasn't figured out how to navigate and starts guessing, coming out of one hole to find a baby demon Marshall playing on the tree, meaning this memory would need to be some time before he turned into a vampire, which is thousands of years before the Land of Ooh. Looks pretty Ooh-like to me though. Mid-jump chasing a butterfly, the world is sucked of its magic, which is explained to be a retcon within their universe, but the tree remembers a bit of how things were beforehand. Okay, I can live with this. This makes complete sense with trees having rings and you can tell their age and stuff. The memories are built into them. Cool. Everything here works, despite none of this furthering the plot. Let's see where they take it. In non-magical world, Marshall falls and ruins his pants, and gets chastised by his mother. Cake then spots a butterfly about to get eaten by a spider and kills the spider. They then head back into the tree and try following the river down to wherever it leads. When they come out, they find the entire city covered in silk, with giant butterflies being killed by baby Finn, wearing a medallion of the tank's Peppermint Butler AI. He explains that 1,000 years ago, an epidemic of spider flies took over the world, all starting from a colony of 5 in the willow. That's right, they are peeking 1,000 years into the future. So the tree isn't just able to show you its history, it's just straight up time travel. And Cake killing that spider in the past changed the future. This makes absolute zero sense now. You've just completely lost me. Nor does it have any actual effect on the story down the road. What we do learn is that baby Finn appears to be infinitely a baby, not aged even 1,000 years into the future. Huntress figures out that tasting the water tells her which hole to go through, and she jumps into the river to be taken to wherever the present is. I'm almost tempted to just finish this part of the story, but you have to understand the whiplash from the A, B, and C stories being broken up over the course of a 24-minute episode. Back to Gary and Marshall we go. Gary apologizes to Marshall for dragging him to his parents, thinking it's why Marshall seems off. He instead explains something completely out of left field, saying he's just been thinking about what it's like as a kid. Quote, adults say they care, then suddenly ghost you. Gary points out how that doesn't sound like Marshall's mom at all, who calls him non-stop. We as the viewer can put together that this probably has to do with Simone. He tries to change the subject, but Gary continues to pry, until Marshall straight up tells him that whenever he's being controlling, it reminds him of his mother. This is so stupid. Mind you, this was brought on by a single incident where Marshall asked to help Gary bake, and when Gary told him what to do, that was it. PTSD triggered. This doesn't even tie into anything. Gary doesn't even address the controlling thing. He just suggests Marshall try to use his music to express how he's feeling. Way to pivot there, buddy. You know that core thing about Marceline that she's been doing for thousands of years? Well, apparently Marshall has never actually done that before. If that's the case though, what the hell has the angsty teen living on the street been singing about? We move back to Fiona, who runs into Queenie about to demolish the sweet spot, even after saying they had a whole week to get her the money. Fiona jumps in front of the bulldozer and attempts to negotiate, the two finally settling on $70,000 by the end of the week, a good $20,000 more than originally planned. While this is technically sweet spot related plot, it's only moved the goalpost further, and one wonders why they wouldn't just fundraise to start fresh by that point, because there's no way they put $70,000 into this idea in less than a month. While walking down the street, Fiona realizes she's being followed and doubles back, catching the guy who's been following her and Marshall, who for some reason is dressed like a dog. We then cut back to Huntress and Cake, the two having a short spout that's a good 5 minutes removed from the comment in question. After Cake killed that spider, Huntress said, "At every cat's core is a stone cold killer." This comment apparently offended Cake, who tells Huntress to cool it with the instinct stuff. Huntress asks why she wouldn't want to be her cat self, and Cake says it's because she isn't a cat anymore. That's it, just another nod at the idea that she's trying to be more than a cat. After dunking under the water, Cake pulls herself through another opening. They forgot that the first opening pulled Huntress in when Cake entered, because now she's the only one who's gone in. This part of the tree shows sometime in the near future, where Fiona ends up a lackey of Abadir, having just chased out squatters from a building to demolish it and make room for a new hotel. This is meant to show that the path Fiona is heading down is one where she ends up selling out by the end of it. How she gets there is still unknown by this point. Huntress finally finds the right opening, and to get out of the tree, the two have to reach Huntress's planted hand. She then grows a new body and spits Cake out. None of this makes any sense, okay? Like, we still don't know why Cake was melded onto Huntress in the first place. We're just doing whatever right now. As far as we're aware, Huntress has no more green magic left, so whatever this power is has to be unrelated to the heart. Stuff like burrowing into the grass could just be abilities due to her plant nature. Her horns have also gotten noticeably larger. Not really sure how having to grow an entire entire new body adds up to more body, but we don't really care about any rules around here. Cake then sees the colony of butterflies that destroy the world in the future and kills them to prevent it, showing us that the future seen in the tree can be changed. Wait, it took 11 years for the butterfly to have more butterflies? Finally, we cut to Hannah Abadir, who asks Damon, named that because it sounds like Demon, if he has anything to report on Marshall to explain why he won't answer her calls, revealing that Damon has been sent out to spy on Marshall as early back as his childhood. Fiona's arrived to make some sort of deal. The voice of DJ Flame's advice to do whatever it takes and call in whatever favors needed echoing through Fiona's mind. And then the last minute of the show sees Simon trying to use the demonic wishing eye to heal Finn. We get a cameo from Wishy, the Wishmaster who lives inside the eye, who we've not seen since his first and only appearance in season 10 episode 9, Bananas. The wish magic doesn't work, meaning Simon gave up a piece of his soul to the medallion for nothing, as Finn's body begins to wither like a fucking raisin. I swear to God, if they kill Finn, I'm going to lose my shit. And with that, we've made it through episode 5, marking the halfway point of the season. I almost enjoyed the Willow side of the story, but I do find it strange we've just invented this power, and that Miss hangs out in the forest her entire life, had no idea she could do that. The power is also used one more time in a later episode, and it's not going to maintain any of the same rules. Ignoring the random overpowered implications of what we just saw, it was fun, and if this was Adventure Time, it could have been a good standalone episode idea. But this isn't Adventure Time, and the 6 minutes of fun was broken up by 18 minutes of meeting Gary's parents and Fiona sitting in for a studio recording just so an artist could make a cameo in the show. On to episode 6, The Bird in the Clock. An episode that breaks probably the most rules out of any of them so far, while making up new rules to basically do whatever the writers wanted. This week's backstory is about two mischievous brothers who existed before the dawn of most things. After stealing and eating the etheric pizza, the two are brought in for judgment by Orbo. One brother sets the blame on the other, and the two are separated, before the one accused of instigating is cast down, never to be seen again, while the other brother was sentenced to be Fate's messenger, becoming the Cosmic Owl. Now so far, this doesn't break any previous lore, it only vaguely recontextualizes the Cosmic Owl. But now is when I want to take a moment to talk about how the show has already done this character a little dirty. In the first season of Fionna and Cake, we didn't see the Cosmic Owl in person, and we only get a mention of him making it onto the Scarab's list, for profiteering. That's right, the only throwaway reference to this character in the first season is to say he's purposely profiting off his job as Fate's messenger. It's never brought up again, as the Scarab is already hyperfixated on Fiona World to the point of being yoinked, and most people probably don't even remember this, but I remember, and I am not a fan of the show deciding to write something so uncharacteristic to the Cosmic Owl, who's been shown in the past to be very uncomfortable with any cosmic rule breaking, but this pales in comparison to what's coming, trust me. We start the episode at the graveyard, and in short terms, Fiona's made a deal with Hannah Abadir to use her mausoleum as the venue for the fundraiser. 6 episodes in, guys, but we finally have a venue picked out for the thing that maybe solves the other thing. Progress. Marshall doesn't look too stoked, especially since his mom has already built a grave for him, as well as a second blank one for whoever he ends up with. Cake tells Fiona about her vision in the Willow of Fiona becoming Abadir's lackey, but Fiona blows this off, saying she's the one who's using Abadir, while Gary tries to look at the bright side. Marshall's mom will have to hear what he's saying, as well as the fact it'd be pretty metal to play a set on top of his own grave. Hunter makes his way to the mausoleum, preparing to apologize for hanging up on Fiona, which happened like 2 whole days ago, bro. I think the window for that apology is closed. He gets sidetracked after running into Huntress, his Ooh counterpart. The meeting goes about as well as you'd expect. Back in Ooh, Finn is looking worse for wear, and Marceline suggests another idea to save him, turning him into a vampire. Bonnie is against this idea, and instead wants to just plump him up with some de-aging serum to improve morale. Marceline then sees a vision of the Vampire King, a rarely experienced side effect from absorbing his vampire essence at the end of the Stakes miniseries. He tells her she knows what she has to do, and she fucking does it. I was actually super shocked by this, but of course, the plot cannot have this be the solution, and the blood of the heart not knocks Marceline on her ass. Yet another attempted solution, albeit a bad one, failed. Back in Fionna world, everyone's getting ready for bed at Cake's apartment, whose funding source is still unknown. Baby Finn arrives and begins doing Baby Finn things before growing up and sticking his arm in the garbage disposal. It quickly becomes clear that this is a dream Huntress is having that includes seeing the old man design of Finn, first and last seen in Together Again, implying Finn died of old age. But now that he's physically shriveling up, anything's possible. His arm is also the same right now as in Together Again, though it actually changed between the bar scene with Simon and when they actually headed out to the heart of the forest. Never explained, by the way. The Cosmic Owl shows up and straight up tells Huntress that his next stop is to give Finn a croak dream, setting off the main conflict of the episode, which we actually stay on the entire time. Huntress then attacks the Cosmic Owl, who says he's only doing his job. But instead of heading back through his window, which is right there, he now apparently has the power to just cut a rip in the current dream and enter another one. In the original show, the Cosmic Owl was called to enter premonition dreams by coins that would open a doorway into the dream he was supposed to be in. He can also take dreaming people into dreams other than the one they started in, but he's also been shown to have the power to wake people on command. He has done it in most of his appearances, as it's common to spot the Cosmic Owl right before you wake up. But that would defeat the entire premise of this episode, where Fionna and Huntress dream hop to try and stop the Cosmic Owl from delivering Finn's croak dream. Never mind that he can literally jump to Finn's dream instantly like we've seen him do before. He's got to go through all these random dreams for some reason. That reason being because the writers wanted it to happen and are ignoring how the Cosmic Owl's powers have been shown to work to make it possible. I'm not speculating with this either. This has literally been stated in interviews. The first stop is Fiona's dream, full of more guilt stuff. The moment she touches an ice piano, it melts, then the chicken thing calls her a loser, and the ooh version of herself tries to pull her into a puddle. Huntress and the Cosmic Owl arrive, Fiona is told it's a dream, shakes off the puddle version of herself, and heads out to continue the chase. Because the Cosmic Owl was in this dream, that means something in here is bound to happen. Next is Cake's dream, which has the worst implications of all time. It's her on a cardboard TV set like the Cheers show, having just given birth to a bunch of stretchy cat-human hybrid babies. Then the Cosmic Owl shows up. Dear God, the guy's actually gonna fuck a cat. She also smacks her foot because we need to spell out later that the dreams are happening. But keep this detail in mind for later, because it's gonna actually poke a hole in the writer's logic that they didn't even notice. Fionna and Huntress recruit Cake, and the moment she leaves, a nurse starts hitting on Imkron. This nurse is... Okay, well, fuck me. You see what I mean when I say we can't be subtle about anything? In the original show, Jake imagines at one point that Mr. Cupcake would try to steal Lady Ranicorn away from him. So this show throws in a reference to that, but because the writers think you're too stupid to figure that out, they had to physically show us, by the way, this is the female Cupcake. How subtle of them. They quickly pass through LSP's dream, him being tickled on a table by a bunch of strange looking women. This will come up in a later episode for like a split second. Next, they pass through Marshall's dream, and while running towards Simone, she turns into his mom. Fionna runs by as Marshall's apologizing profusely, and she tells him to talk back to his mother. And we move on to the next dream. The Cosmic Owl splits into three, a power we've never seen him use, and escapes after Fionna gets distracted by what's happening in this dream, as Hunter offers her flowers and DJ Flame offers her chocolates. Huntress slaps Fionna awake, and as Cake is woken up as well, she smacks her foot. Cause guys, did you know the dreams happen in real life when the Cosmic Owl's there?
The Cosmic Owl's presence makes dreams come true.
I literally just said that. It should also be noted that the babies were actually Cake's stuffed animals, meaning there's still hope that there will be no cat fucking. You still need to keep in mind this toe smack for the end of the episode, because again, it pokes a hole in all the writing. Huntress angrily tells Fionna why she was chasing the Cosmic Owl, whose trail she lost thanks to her love triangle bullshit.
Why not just go into Finn's dream and stop him there?
Well, you see, Cake, while sharing dreams is something we've seen, you can't just go dream hopping. That's only an ability the Cosmic Owl has.
I would need to find an open conduit to him.
Or what the fuck are you on about? So apparently Huntress believes that because Fionna has been to Ooh and has met a Finn before, she can somehow go into her mind and her dreams and connect her to Finn's dreams. What are we even doing here, guys? None of this makes any sense. Huntress is just turning into a Swiss Army knife of powers. Why can she go into dreams and connect people across the fucking multiverse? Because the plot needs it to happen to continue. She's practically stronger than she was with the goddamn green magic. Since Fionna has never actually met our Finn before, the two two are instead transported into the dream of Farmworld Finn, the one she has met. And here's the proof that he was alive. I called that shit from day one. The moment season 1 episode 5 Destiny came out, I said Finn absolutely survived that. He does say he's upset not knowing what happened to his son, who ran off with little Destiny. But after Fionna explains the two are safe in her world, he's happy to hear they're fine. But guys, Fionna can't even afford her apartment. Where the fuck are these two orphan kids living? Because Farmworld Finn has met Finn, we're somehow able to jump from this guy to the dreams of the Finn we're looking for. Totally makes sense. Back in Marcy's drinking the pink out of Bonnie's hair to try and recover from the poison. As we move into the headspace of Finn, they find him inside of a TV, and upon entering, they find Finn on a stage, saving a bunch of pocket watch people. Huntress tells Fionna to protect him while she keeps a lookout for the Cosmic Owl, only for the pocket watch people he saved to turn on him moments later, killing him. Fionna has a guilt flash of Martin Mertens, who died in Vampire World saving her. I don't even know if she's aware these two are related, but either way, she almost starts crying as the lights go out and clapping is heard. When the lights come back on, Finn is fine and a new enemy has appeared. A bunch of clocks firing clock hands at them. Finn dies again, saving Fionna from getting skewered, and clapping is heard once more, before the scene resets. During these resets, Fionna tries to explain to Finn that he's in a coma and who she is, but he's just not retaining that information. The next scene sees the pair being attacked by clock bears. If you haven't figured it out by this point, Finn's fighting against the clock. His days as a hero are numbered, completely willing to sacrifice himself to save someone he doesn't even know. We're told in Together Again that after Jake's death, something no spin-off has dared to touch at the time of writing, Finn continued to live while secretly counting down the days till he'd see his brother again. We get more and more stage performances that lead to Finn's death, Fionna never being able to save him in time, all while Farmworld Finn and Huntress prepare to fight the Cosmic Owl. After everything, Finn is still smiling and ready for what comes next, and Fionna asks him how he keeps going. Finn tells her that's what heroes do. He lets the universe guide him and he follows his hero heart. This reinvigorates Fionna just as Finn gets pulled into a clock. At this moment, the Cosmic Owl has arrived, and Farmworld Finn tries to help Fionna prevent Finn from dying once more. The Cosmic Owl tells Huntress he's just the messenger, and she says she'll just have to kill the messenger then. After a pause, the Cosmic Owl charges her, and just before the clock closes on Finn, Huntress stabs him through the heart, killing him. That's right, they fucking murdered the Cosmic Owl. Why? Because fuck you, I guess. We have to ignore that they somehow got to Finn faster than the Cosmic Owl should have taken by simply slipping the corresponding coin into his dream screen. An action he did do because we can see the window open behind him. We have to ignore the fact that he could have woken them all up with a single hoot. On top of ignoring that everything that brought our trio to this moment is made up bullshit thrown together like kids making up rules on the playground. We're also told that they stopped the Cosmic Owl in time for the dream not to become reality. But earlier in the same episode, Cake stubs her toe in her dream before the Cosmic Owl gets there, and it still happens when they wake up. So what's to stop the last death from counting? They've also stopped Finn from getting a croak dream, a problem they wrote in just so it would need to be solved. This doesn't save Finn, it just brings us right back to where we were before the episode began. Which might not be a problem if the story was supposed to be more episodic, but again, we're working off a serialized conflict, whose goalposts just keep getting pushed back further and further, making it feel like nothing's really being accomplished. Fionna and Huntress then hide the Cosmic Owl's body inside Finn's dream. And yes, the name of the episode literally refers to them shoving his corpse into a clock. Huntress tells Finn she's gonna save him, and the big moment here is that Finn says I love you to her, while she can't bring herself to say it back. Even though she just killed a fucking cosmic entity to keep him alive, they wake up just for Huntress to pass out again, and Fionna, having witnessed Finn die 1,000 times in front of her, is quite mentally exhausted. Cake tells her that maybe she needs to take a day off, but Fionna says she's supposed to be a hero, and that she needs to focus on saving the sweet spot. Cake tells her she's already a hero and that she just needs to follow her heart. Because Fionna is a fucking idiot, she interprets this as needing to go tell Flame that she's in love with him. So she walks to DJ Slime's studio in the middle of the night and gets Flame's attention. We get one of those classic scenes where one person is thinking one thing and the other is like, I totally am on the same page as you, with Fionna about to confess her love and DJ Flame instead thinking she wants him to play at the Sweet Spot fundraiser. While that's not what Fionna wanted, she's nonetheless excited, and after a potted plant falls, the dream moment of Fionna holding DJ Flame happens.
No, Finn. He was kidding about a stalker. It was
Nothing to worry about.
Oh god. This guy is what we call a red flag. His girlfriend just called to ask why he vanished from the radio show she was listening to him on, and he didn't mention that he was talking to Fiona, his ex-girlfriend. A final scene shows Marshall working on his music, Bonnie dyeing her hair after Marceline sucked all the color out, and BMO giving us a banger line as always.
He's reason.
Good job, BMO. 6 episodes in, and not only are we no closer to solving Finn's poisoning, but we've just killed off the Cosmic Owl through a side plot that ignored all the rules we've previously seen established throughout Adventure Time surrounding the concept of dreams. And we actually know why this is the case thanks to an interview of the showrunner Adam Muto. He explained that they wanted Finn and Fiona to finally meet somehow, something that had yet to happen until this episode. They didn't know how to accomplish that, so they worked their way back from that idea, stepping on every established rule about dreams in the process. There also could be argued another reason they decided to kill off the character of the Cosmic Owl, one that I'm understanding of. In the original series, the Cosmic Owl was voiced by Michael Emmett Walsh, an actor with an incredibly long catalog of roles since the 60s. He originally began his career in theater, despite the difficulties of being deaf in one ear after a mastoid surgery at the age of 3. He's been on Broadway and TV shows, movies, and was also known to hand out $2 bills to the crew of whatever set he was working on, giving the advice, don't spend it in one place and you'll never be broke. In 2024, he tragically passed away from a heart attack only 3 days before his 89th birthday. I guess in a way it makes sense that they'd write out this character, considering the passing of his original voice actor. Is what I would say if they could commit to this, but of course they couldn't because fuck you. And unlike the death of Prismo, which was noticed immediately, everything in the show happens in slow motion, and we aren't going to experience the fallout from this cosmic entity's death until episode 8. There's also the fact that his origins were explained at the beginning of the episode, and includes a never heard of brother. This isn't random, and like most things in the show, will come up again far after we'd hoped it would. In a way I completely called from the jump. Now on to episode 7, The Wolves Who Wandered, which finally breaks the trend of stylized backstories in the cold open. Instead, we see LSP, the counterpart to Lumpy's space princess, sleeping on an abandoned merry-go-round, before being abducted by a female alien. This alien is absolutely supposed to mirror the Martians in the original series. The giveaway is the shape of their heads and the dance pad looking thing behind her, being very similar to the transport pad Finn used to get to Mars, in season 4 episode 14, Sons of Mars. Ellis speaks as if he's already met this person before, saying she's finally back, but when she tells him she's got a message he needs to give to someone else, he plugs his ears to ignore it until she leaves, waking up alone in the same spot as before. Now this episode is going to go off in the most what the fuck direction of any of them so far, and I'm warning you now, it's not really clear how much of what we're gonna see is real or not. After the title card, we cut to Fiona slapping up a sticker announcement that DJ Flame is now headlining the fundraiser event, which we're now calling Boys Night apparently. I'm not calling it Boys Night. Gary and Marshall do not look excited about this, and Fiona is incredibly dismissive of their feelings, even as Gary explains that Marshall's been working really hard on his music for the fundraiser.
He's gonna be a great opener.
Bruh. Elsewhere, Huntress is still trying to interpret who the broken hoe chasing after a flame could possibly be referring to, not yet realizing how terribly obvious it is. Fiona and Cake are waiting on the steps of the mausoleum for Flame, who was supposed to show up to oversee his equipment being set up, but after the day passes, he doesn't show at all, and Fiona begins freaking out, since the fundraiser is only 2 days away. Now this is obviously a dick move, and it would totally make sense if Fiona lost interest in Flame because of this.
Fennel's trying to keep Flame away from me.
What the actual fuck? So Fiona instead interprets this as Flame's girlfriend, Fennel, purposely keeping her away from him, and wants to go march over to his apartment to save him from Fennel. Of course, Cake thinks this is a bad idea and tells Fiona she just needs to sleep it off. That night, Fiona can't sleep, only able to think about DJ Flame, as well as Fennel, and failing to save the sweet spot. So she gets up and walks to his apartment, furiously barging in after Fennel opens the door. But Felix isn't there, and Fennel says he didn't come home the night before, meaning he's been missing since our broken tool went to see him at the radio station. Later, the two arrive at Cake's place and bug Huntress about helping find DJ Flame. Instead of going to find Flame herself, Huntress grows a plant out of her hand, telling the girls if they take it, they'll temporarily be given wizard eyes. What? In the original series, wizard eyes were introduced in Season 2, Episode 25, Mortal Recoil, as something Ice King has, that lets him see the spirit world plane. It's later brought back in Season 4, Episode 11, Beyond This Earthly Realm, after Finn gets stuck in the spirit world after touching the porcelain lamb. He then gets help from the Ice King, who's the only one who can hear and see him. But how the fuck does seeing the spirit plane assist with locating a not dead guy? It turns out the entire episode is just a not at all disguised drug trip, where the girls literally say this edible ain't shit before taking way too much and immediately acting high. Why do wizard eyes get you high now? My guess is the writers just wanted to do a drug trip episode and, like getting Finn and Fiona to meet, work their way back to the idea, ignoring all the problems created by forcing it this way. Like the biggest problem, this power to give others wizard eyes is completely pulled out of Huntress's ass, much like the tree power. But we could argue the tree power was inherent to her plantness. However, this power makes no sense. How can she do this after losing her wizard magic from the Heart of the Forest incident? I swear to God, she has more powers now than being connected to it, seemingly only having limited Green Lantern abilities to make arrows. Also, if she has wizard eyes and can see the spirit world, presumably she would be able to find and see the guy named Spirit Dream Warrior. I have massive disdain for this episode. The moment Fiona and Finn get outside, they see a little spirit guy and start chasing him. Cake literally has to prevent them from getting hit by cars, and the two eventually end up in a salon, where they stumble upon Ellis, who they see glowing with their wizard eyes, before also seeing a spirit version of Lumpy's Space Prince materialize on top of his head. They also see Imkron, who has the spirit of Monochromacorn above his head.
That man is a horse.
Go to him.
Go to him. Shut up.
He's not a horse, he's a fucking guy. The girls tell Ellis about DJ Flame going missing, and he says that the most likely culprit is aliens, showing a bunch of drawings he says are from his first-hand abduction. The girls blow this theory off before heading outside to follow a herd of spirit creatures. They stumble upon a burning building, which they mistake as DJ Flame's aura, so they both run inside to look for him. Cake saves them again, and is then shot by a water hose by the fire department, who chastises them for running into a live burn drill. They then immediately do it again because the spirits are pointing them in that direction. Why the fuck are the spirits pointing them to go inside? It's not brought up at all, but do they all mutually want to see Fiona and Finn die? Cake then locks the two in a porta potty before running off to get Huntress for help. While inside, Fiona starts talking about how she feels like she's fucking up everything lately, just like she's fucking up wizard eyes. Fennel says she's doing her best, but Fiona argues that everyone around her has it put together, listing Cake, Gary, Felix, and Hunter. We then get a very much forced aside where Fennel explains Hunter used to be a very angry person and had to put in a lot of work to get to the person Fiona knows today. During this spiel, Fennel only uses the pronouns they and them to refer to Hunter, confirming him to be non-binary or something of the sort. That's literally the only thing had by this conversation, Fiona's literal reaction being,
"Oh, huh."
Fiona then gets the idea of the two focusing their intentions on DJ Flame together to see if the wizard eyes will show them the way, to which a pink bright light appears outside. They break out of the shed and see the pink gem-shaped dance pad from Ellis's drawing, put their hands on the bars, and are shot into space. We then cut to Huntress and Cake finding the abandoned porta potty. This is the moment that Huntress realizes the broken hoe she's been searching for is Fiona, but then comes to the conclusion that DJ Flame is the one she needs to find, because for some reason he must be the one to lead her to the heart. She runs off into the park, gives herself wizard eyes by eating her own plant. Okay, what the hell? So she doesn't have wizard eyes, but she can give herself and other people wizard eyes? What kind of backward ass logic is that? She's found the crumbs of some hot dogs on the ground that she says has something to do with wherever Fiona went. Then she uses the wizard eyes to follow a bunny to DJ Flame's apartment building. It goes into the building and a little flame spirit comes out, but the spirit flame touches water and then dies or something. So the trail of DJ Flame has gone cold, or something like that. Huntress then picks out a tree and goes inside of it, looking into the past and seeing Flame saying he was headed to somewhere called More in Orange. She then hops right out of the tree with zero issue. Remember when she had to grab her own hand that she needed to plant that first time she did it? Yeah, fuck that. She can just time travel tree hop without having to regrow her body again. She then spots Hunter, who doesn't look very happy seeing the person who headbutt him earlier. Huntress asks if he knows what More in Orange is, is, and Hunter believes it's actually an intersection uptown. She then tells him to show her where it is, but he says he's busy. And after a little conversation, he's like, okay, why not? This also feels like more forced bullshit on the writer's part. They wanted these two to hang out because they thought it was cool and is literally gonna have no impact on the story. Remember that guy who was following Fionna and Marshall like 3 episodes ago? Well, we're finally back to that side plot. Marshall is practicing his music on a roof when he spots a dude in a giant pigeon costume. He attacks the guy, who says he works for his mother, his job being to follow Marshall around to keep him safe, making sure he doesn't get kidnapped and whatnot as a kid. He also reveals that Marshall's mother is the reason Simone avoids him, because they thought she was a pedo and so they put a restraining order on her. I can't make this shit up, bro, what the fuck? So that explains why Simone ghosted Marshall, and this info pushes Marshall even further from wanting to interact with his mother, even though he already didn't want to interact with his mother. Great direction you took there, guys. That build-up since episode 4 really paid off. Back to Fionna and Fennel, whose sidetrack has taken them all the way to a colony on Venus, where they find a civilization of infinite love, where Fionna is immediately proposed to by the first person they meet, who explains through song that everyone loves everyone there. This is basically PG-13 orgy land, and it's really fucking weird. The idea probably comes from the Roman goddess Venus, who represents love and desire. They come upon the leader of the Venusians, who's celebrating the Earth's greatest source of love and lust, DJ Flame. The two immediately jump in and challenge the leader to a duel for Felix, but it's a duel of love. The two gear up in love armor and have to fight the Venusians champion, where the gimmick is that you have to use love to make your weapons and armor work, and this is used as an opportunity for Fennel to share her genuine feelings about Fionna, saying she loves how brave Fionna is and how much she supports her friends.
I've admired you for so long!
This is all while Fionna has been trying to steal her man, by the way. Fionna can't come up with anything to say besides liking Fennel's hair, but eventually is able to admit she likes how supportive Fennel is, and that she genuinely wants to be her friend after getting to know her better. The getting to know her better being barging into her apartment, getting hot dogs, and the current drug trip that they are on. With their feelings about each other spoken, they defeat the champion of Venus, grab DJ Flame, and fly off into space. So that entire 6 minutes was just an excuse for them to say those 2 sentences to each other, because spoiler alert, they didn't actually save DJ Flame from Venus. While flying through space, Fionna and Fennel start seeing the magic world versions of themselves, as they both have a gay moment telling each other how beautiful they are. They then drop DJ Flame, who falls into space. Elsewhere, Huntress and Hunter are at the intersection of Moor and Orange, and find a bunch of pulled up rose bushes. If you haven't figured it out by this point, these roses might be important. On the other side of the hedge, they see the culprit of the Rosebush massacre, who mentions DJ Flame's number is almost up. While Hunter wants to text Cake for backup, Huntress instead says they should handle it themselves, so they jump the hedge and start beating up the people they find. And only after that is when they spot DJ Flame performing on a stage. That's right, they didn't hear music or anything on the other side of the hedge, or while peeking through, nothing. Hunter asks what DJ Flame is doing and why he ghosted Fionna and Fennel, and DJ Flame explains he's been locked in playing a gig for the Lemon Carb's dog's birthday. Hunter says in Spanish that Flame has gone too far, and Huntress, literally out of nowhere, gets uncharacteristically mad at Flame. Her exact words are, "How could you be so heartless? All you had to do was communicate, and all of this could have been avoided, you ass." All of what? You don't know where Fionna is, nor have you shown any real sign of caring. In fact, you only cared to find Flame because you believed he would be the key to finding the heart of the forest. Again, this is super forced, and yes, it's because they wanted Cake to then show up and make Huntress realize, wait a minute, that's the same thing I've been doing, and because this guy we don't like is doing that, it must be bad. Again, the subtle writing of a brick to the dome, but in this case, it also is just out of character for Huntress. Also, Hunter is sitting there doing nothing because, like I said, they probably just thought a team up between the two would be cool, so they didn't really have anything planned past that. Back in space, Fionna and Fennel are crying about killing DJ Flame, who we know is actually safe in the Lemon Carb's yard, before they wake up on top of the big wheel, realizing the flame they dropped was nothing more than a stuffed animal. And Cake informs the two that Flame is fine, and that he plans to be at the fundraiser the next day. This entire side plot was useless, nothing more than an excuse for Fionna and Fennel to get closer than meeting a singular time, as well as referencing the Mars colony from the original show, even having a counterpart to the King of Mars be a statue. But was any of it real? Probably not. It's still up to interpretation at this point, but I don't think any of it happened. Fionna and Fennel part ways, and Huntress says she's made up her mind to help Fionna save the sweet spot, because she's finally realized realize that Fionna is the busted hoe she's needed to find the heart. At this moment, Marshall calls and tells Fionna he doesn't want to have the fundraiser at the mausoleum, having just discovered the messed up restraining order and wanting to distance himself further from his mom. Fionna completely ignores what Marshall is saying and just goes, "Oh yeah, I totally get it if you don't want to play. You should just sit this one out and leave it up to DJ Flame." Yes, always supporting her friends. And that's how the episode ends. And with it, my hopes this show will give us any payoff by the time we hit the end. It's impossible to give it much more benefit of the doubt after 70% of the show is over, and not only have we gotten nowhere, but Fionna is turning into a terrible protagonist. Wanting to save the sweet spot was her idea in the first place. Gary has an apartment and Marshall is staying there now. It's not like his apparent non-functioning van is really that much of a loss at that point. But she's been pushing the idea of doing this for them, all while they've been the least enthusiastic party to her shenanigans, which includes going to Marshall's mother, who he's very obviously not a fan of, to secure a venue, and getting her ex to completely steal the show, without ever consulting Gary or Marshall. Her want to be a hero is leading her to more and more selfish decision making, a lot of it stemming directly from her incredibly problematic feelings for DJ Flame, who's hiding the fact he's met up with Fionna, his ex, in the middle of the night from his own girlfriend, and also not telling either of them about the gig he had planned, completely ghosting both of them to the point of triggering a manhunt due to his selfishness. I sure hope that these selfish characters don't selfish themselves into doing something they regret. Now on to episode 8, The Insect That Sang, a major turning point for the show, and an episode that immediately blew up on Twitter after dropping. Our backstory sequence this time around has to do with the heart of the forest, completely recontextualizing the creature's existence from some nature being the Green Wizards were protecting to a prisoner. The wizards who fought Huntress were previously forest bandits, who after being guided by Spirit Dream Warrior found their way to the creature they'd later named the Heart of the Forest. It bestowed the green magic upon them, a power that faded if they didn't stay close to the heart. The backstory implies that these bandits stopped trying to rob people because they had everything they needed while with the heart. After it wandered too far, they decided to imprison it to keep it from escaping, and also to hide their source of power from others, death being the punishment for revealing this secret. We already learned the heart was some sort of magical creature at the center of green magic, and we saw it was chained up with tons of hands grafted onto its body. But now we know for a fact that it was being guarded against its will by the Green Wizards, who needed it stationary for their powers to work. But this brings even more questions. Spirit Dream Warrior is shown to have led the Green Wizards to the heart, the same way he led Huntress, but the contexts were extremely different, the bandits only later capturing and practically burying the heart. If Spirit Dream Warrior was still okay bringing people to the heart after this, does that mean he's okay with the heart being treated that way? This also leaves us asking how many people even know the true nature of the heart, seeing as it just looks like a bush, and someone like Huntress was unaware that it was an animal-like creature. Also, why is this thing's blood poisonous? And how did it poison Finn when he didn't break the skin? When Huntress tapped the bush, the entire thing basically imploded, but Finn landed on it, and we saw it spew not a drop of blood to infect him. Back in Fionna World, it's the day after episode 7, the same day the fundraiser was scheduled to take place. One of Abadir's helicopters tosses the DJ Flame statue brought in for the event into the bay. Wait, there's a bay? Jesus Christ. Remember that there's water here for later, guys. Hannah explained she's pulling the venue, since her only reason for offering it was to get closer to Marshall. And now that he's pulling out, she wants nothing to do with it, not caring at all if that means the sweet spot he's trying to fund fails. Fionna starts freaking out, realizing they have to find a new venue in less than a day. First, she calls DJ Flame to let him know, only to be told he's not sure he'll be able to make it to the event. He's still at the Lemon Carbs gig, having been trapped inside a glass lampshade. A very forced and out of place reference to the lamp Flame Princess was trapped in by her father at the behest of Princess Bubblegum when she was no more than a toddler. Fionna says the new plan is to rescue DJ Flame first, then they can find a new venue. Cake says that maybe they just need to throw in the towel before Fionna and Huntress begin getting yoinked the same way the Scarab did back in season 1. Fionna tells Cake to get the fundraiser going, and they're teleported away. In the land of Ooh, Simon is taking Bonnie and Marcy to the heart by using the same technique Finn taught him, doing it completely blindfolded and actually being pretty good at it.
We're doing the right thing.
Back with Fionna and Huntress, they've been teleported to the Hall of Judgment, accused of killing the Cosmic Owl, who looks way worse than they left him, Jesus Christ. Meanwhile, Cake is talking to Imkron about the fundraiser plan, thinking she might be able to pull off the idea herself, saying it's not all that crazy. She runs off to the park where Gary and Marshall are selling cookies on their own, but they say they don't want any of Hannah's help. Cake says Hannah isn't involved anymore before storming off. This episode probably has the worst cutting back and forth so far, because we're gonna keep scooting between A, B, and C stories within a minute of each other. Back we go to Fionna. Orbo tells the court that a witness tipped them off to Huntress and Fionna pursuing and murdering the Cosmic Owl. And the new punishment for this crime is eternity in the pain vortex, which Orbo is willing to knock down to 1,000 years if they confess. Fionna is ready to defend herself, having watched a few episodes of Night Court, and Orbo calls the witness to the stand, who turns out to be the Scarab, who claims to have been channel surfing Prismo's TV for the Cosmic Owl, interested in seeing the croak dream he was headed to, only to find Fionna and Huntress dumping his body inside of Finn's dream, which introduces another lore issue that we've yet to encounter, something that will become quite common in the last 3 episodes. Since when can Prismo watch dreams on his TV? This was never a thing in the original show or even the last season. There have been entities in the past that can cause people to dream. For instance, King Worm, who was first introduced in the episode Evicted back in season 1 of the original show. He was later brought back in season 4 episode 18, continuing right from where Evicted left off, having hypnotized Finn and Jake to drain them of life, while the entire episode is Finn's attempt to break out of the dream. There's also Nightmare Princess, who gives Finn, Jake, and Bimo a shared dream on their boat ride home, all because she wanted to ask them for some bananas. In return, the trio are given nightmare juice, which is used to induce a dream during the finale that helps settle the gum war. But why would Prismo of all people be able to see dreams on his TV wall? Is that within his jurisdiction? We know it's not, because that's literally the Cosmic Owl's job. But it's just so ridiculous how much stuff we have to make up for this scene to even happen. While Fionna tries to argue the Scarab is biased against her due to their history, she tells Orbo to call up Prismo to vouch for her. Prismo is not in any state to testify, crying over Cosmic Owl's death. During this, Huntress takes a ring off Fiona's finger to try and break out of the box they're stuck in. This ring was actually given to Fionna during the last episode by the weird horny Venusian they first ran into. This has led people to speculate that the trip to Venus was real and not just a drug trip. I really don't want to believe that's the case, because that would just be extremely stupid. I don't want to believe an orgy planet is canon. Sue me. It could simply be explained that they found the ring somewhere along the way to the big wheel, because they were literally running around the city like maniacs. Evidence against this would be how durable the ring appears to be, implying it could be an actual diamond, which they're less likely to have just stolen. Though she basically robbed a grocery store earlier in the season and no one did anything about it. I also have to note that the scar on Huntress's wrist is missing from this shot. Scarab is then allowed to have his crystal back to demonstrate that the two still have cosmic blood on their hands. How the fuck does that work when they killed him in a dream? Fionna explains they just wanted to convince him not to give Finn a croak dream, while Huntress instead argues it's better that he's dead, and that the concept of fate itself is bullshit. Orbo says one more outburst will get Huntress gagged, and we cut back to Fionna World. DJ Flame is still playing his set at the Lemon Carbs, and Cake has arrived to try to free him. She's attacked by more of the cosmic entities left in Fionna World, who for some reason are now working for the Lemon Carbs. Why would cosmic entities be working for money, bro? This is so stupid. The only place this gets us is Cake throwing ass on them repeatedly. She then traps the carbs in the lamp, and Grinch smiles when she realizes this is the perfect place to use as a venue. The word is spread, redirecting everyone from the old venue, which was just Gary and Marshall at a table. It really looks like Cake might be able to successfully pull this off. Back in court, Huntress tries to escape, only getting her hand smushed, while Fionna asks to cross-examine the Scarab. She asks him what exactly he saw, and he says he saw both of them disposing of the corpse. But Fionna points out that this means he didn't actually witness the moment the Cosmic Owl died. And now is when I must bring up the TV again. We've been shown that Prismo can freely scrub through the past contents of whatever he's watching. But why can't we just look back on the TV to see how they killed the Cosmic Owl? Because that logical solution would ruin everything the writers are trying to do here. Orbo says the result is the same. The Cosmic Owl is dead and they handled the body. While Fionna tries to argue they could have acted in self-defense after the Cosmic Owl attacked them.
Said he would get us all with broke Dreams with a gun!
Okay, Fiona, you're losing us now. Reel it back in. She then blurts out that Finn is the actual killer. Before we cut away to the sweet spot again, oh my god. The moment we have something interesting going on, we gotta keep jumping back and forth. It's so painful. Like we're literally getting a minute of courtroom scene before cutting it back to the fundraiser. Please stop doing this to me. While selling cookies, Marshall spots Simone and decides to try talking to her. He explains that he learned about his mother putting a restraining order on her, and she says she never wanted to get between Marshall and Hannah. Marshall says he got into music because of Simone, and that he was going to play a new song tonight, but says it's probably pointless now. For some unexplained reason, the entire reason you canceled that idea at the last venue is because you learned something shitty your mom did, so you wanted to stay away from her, even more than you already were, but she's not involved in the fundraiser anymore. Why would you not play your song now? The squirrel begins introducing the main performance, DJ Flame, the person most of the crowd is there to see. But because he's been performing for 2 days straight, hopped up on caffeine mist, he's falling asleep backstage, so the gang decide to improvise. The little kid from the studio performs his song, Hunter does whatever this cringe shit is, Fennel doesn't even try, Jesus Christ, Jay and Little Destiny do a knife trick. It's never explained where these two children live, so maybe they do this shit on the street for money. The montage is interspliced with Fionna telling the court the story of how Finn is guilty, and that they only hid the body. After another outburst from Huntress, she's gagged, and the court starts getting antsy, which leads Orbo to throw the two into the back rooms. Back at the fundraiser, LSP's performance of squirrels eating out of his mouth is a bust, leading the crowd to want DJ Flame to come out. Cake begs Marshall to play, so he finally does, performing a song called Trust Fall. It's not a bad song, but literally no one on the fucking internet has lyrics for this shit, so I'll throw them on screen for a bit. The song is about trust issues, something Marshall definitely has, after originally believing Simone to have abandoned him, before learning it was actually his mother who sabotaged the relationship. The song magically reinvigorates the guy who hasn't slept in over 2 days. And why the fuck they thrown it back so hard? All the main players are also just staring at him while he performs. Like, Jesus Christ, bro, who hurt you? Simone looks so fucking upset by his song too, like look at that face. After his song, DJ Flame thanks him and goes up to do his set. But after all of this, they've not made even half of what they need to buy the land. Back in the back rooms, Fionna says she felt a gut voice telling her to throw Finn under the bus. Orbo tells the two that they're free to go for now, but not to go far while they try and sort things out. Fiona's selfish decision at least temporarily sparing them. Back in Fionna World, Cake breaks into the Cheers studio and steals all the camera equipment to start broadcasting the fundraiser to the city. She then makes a plea for donations, telling everyone if they donate just $2, they'll be able to save the sweet spot, specifically asking them all to do it for Fionna. She then stretches herself all over the city, telling everyone to drop their donations into cake baskets. There's also a joke here where the gender-swapped version of Bandit Princess tries to take money out of a basket. Cake pushes her stretching to the limit, and they practically hit the goal through her efforts. Exhausted, she heads backstage, only to find Imkron, so she quickly stretches back into her lady form. He says the sweaty fucking cat looks beautiful, and the two go in for a kiss, which goes horribly wrong, thank the Lord. This is supposed to be the turning point for these two's relationship, where they start to realize that a cat and a dude aren't really compatible, but it was kind of undercut by the last episode, where Cake kisses him in the salon, and there seemed to be no issue there. Cake asks Imkron to grab her a drink, and just as she passes out, Fionna and Huntress arrive. Fionna says she can still fix everything, only to pull back the curtain and see the fundraiser was a success, without her. Before she has time to properly feel bad about that, DJ Flame shows up and starts gassing her up. He says he's been trying to keep it professional as he starts caressing her face, and the two literally just start making out right there in front of everyone. Fennel is also here, sees the two kissing, and runs off crying. Flame literally does that thing where he runs after like, it didn't mean anything. And Fionna is left there feeling like shit, since not only did she just fuck up Fennel and disappoint Hunter, but everyone is celebrating the success over the Sweet Spot fundraiser that she pushed for and wasn't at all responsible for the success of. She runs off crying, fucks up her foot on the way out, gets a phone call from Hannah trying to recruit her, offering her a free apartment, but she just runs off again crying more until she gets to the Sweet Spot. Then she completely loses it, saying, and I quote, "I bust my butt for their dreams to make them happy, and they go and just do it without me? None of this would be here without me." This read of the season we just watched goes to show just how selfish Fionna has been this entire time. Every step of the way she's gone against what her friends have actually wanted. She's the one who pushed for this crusade in the first place, the one who got Hannah involved, and the one who got DJ Flame to headline, none of which her friends actually wanted. She then breaks into one of the bulldozers and begins destroying the sweet spot, but apparently she only sorta wanted to destroy it because she acts surprised when she finds herself headed towards the trailer and tries to swerve out of the way, hitting the boxes the van is on. And now we finally know the reason the van is up on these boxes. Maximum damage. That's right guys, the thing we've been trying to save throughout the season. 8 entire episodes destroyed because Fionna felt left out. A crash out for the history books. Literally no one was defending Fionna after this episode. When episode 3 of the season came out, there were tons of people defending her behavior and how pathetic she was being by comparing this literal 29-year-old to a 15-year-old who's crushed didn't like him. But this episode was too much. She kissed another woman's man and crashed a bulldozer in the same day. What are you talking about? From this moment on in the show, almost everything is just completely made up and almost never explained. Things happen because they need to for the plot, not because they make any logical sense in the narrative. Think the Cheers people being mouse size, but kicked into overdrive. And it's going to be extremely painful to point out all the poorly thought out writing. This kicks off with Huntress going, "Oh my god, it all makes sense. All of these roses are the heart of the forest. The reason I couldn't pinpoint it is because your world's heart is everywhere." Her only hints were follow the beat to the root, you use a hoe to get underground, and the broken tool seeks a flame. There is no explanation for why she randomly realizes that the roses are the heart. She then cuts off her hand and plants it next to the roses, only for nothing to happen.
What if we cut off your hand?
Can we try something else first?
That was pretty good. I gotta give it to them. That was fucking hilarious. So Huntress has the heart in the form of roses and the busted hoe. So what does she think to try now? The same dream trick as she did in episode 6. There's no way that's gonna lead to the heart. That would make literally no sense. Unless we're just pulling random shit out of our asses. That's exactly what we're doing. Back in Ooh, Simon has finally found his way to the heart, which by this point is a shriveled mess wheezing on the floor, while the green wizards mourn around it. Bonnie says it's dried up like jerky, so she can't get a sample to try to help Finn. But what she can do is fucking murder it. No, I'm not joking. They make a callback to her ball blam burglar burr, a weapon first and last seen in season 4, episode 19, Lady in Peebles.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna be honest, when I first watched this, I immediately knew this was going to cause some more made up rules later down the road. Because if you've not connected the dots here, Bonnie just murdered the portal to the vine space. So even if Huntress does get there, how is she gonna get back when the singular creature that was the portal is now dead? The episode ends with another great BMO line.
Finn is doing great. He has ascended from this plane. What?
Finn has been snatched up for his cosmic court hearing, and the episode ends. Before we continue onward to break down episode 9, we must discuss the sleeping beast that has awoken to help write it, Rebecca Sugar. Rebecca Sugar is most known for creating the TV show Steven Universe, which was another really good Cartoon Network show, right until the end. This isn't a review of Steven Universe, so I'll keep it brief. The entire time the story is funny and upbeat, while having a darker undertone, related to this alien race of colonizers who've spent millennia hollowing out planets to create more of themselves. The show had many big bads throughout, but the biggest is White Diamond, the absolute authority over a galaxy-spanning empire, completely detached and emotionally unreachable by anybody due to her extreme narcissism surrounding her toxic ideas of purity. Then over the course of 2 minutes, she completely reverses her entire philosophy, deciding that conquering planets is bad, so she disbands her military and frees all the planets she's been controlling for over thousands of years, and they all live happily ever after. I'm being 100% serious, that's literally how the show ends, and it's been heavily criticized across the board. It eventually picked up the story again later with a movie and a spin-off, but the character of White Diamond was forever blighted by her out-of-character 180. The person who wrote that is gonna write the next episode. After the train wreck that is this episode, Fionna throwing Finn under the bus for killing the Cosmic Owl, as well as speedrunning hurting all the people around her due to her unchecked selfishness, the showrunner runners stand before a pile of rubble, turn to Rebecca Sugar, and say, "Fix it." We are guaranteed to get a musical number in the next episode, as well as the most kindergarten playground style pulled out of nowhere rule breaking to ever make its way into the show. The next thing I want to bring up is how I completely predicted episode 9. A day before its release, we were given the title The Worm and His Orchard. Because I have this thing called critical thinking skills, I immediately knew what this title meant. The cat who tipped the box over was Cake. The wolves who wandered were Fionna and Fennel. The insect who sang was the scarab testifying in court. And with the show's habit of introducing stuff 2 episodes before it's addressed again, I instantly knew the worm was going to be the Cosmic Owl's brother. Why mention this detail of him being cast down in the backstory if it wasn't important? The Cosmic Owl is an owl. The brother is going to be the Cosmic Worm. Here is my tweet reply from the day before the episode came out. Get ready for the second most made up episode of this season, one where we are treading completely untouched waters, so anything new could be possible. And finally, we move on to episode 9, The Worm and His Orchard. We start off immediately with Fionna entering her own mind. It's a complete mess, covered in plants, swords, books, and a shelf of stuff that reminds her of Marshall and Gary. She immediately stuffs it all into a drawer, wanting to avoid thinking about them. Huntress climbs in through her eye holes, revealing that she too has a little stone head. These were first seen in the last season when Simon was beamed into Shermie's mind by Gulp. Shermie can be seen just letting it happen because he really doesn't care. Huntress starts looking for whatever could be connecting Fionna to the green magic of her world, saying she has a dark corner in the back of her mind where magic flows. Alright, get ready because we're about to just do whatever now. So Fionna randomly decides to grab the back of Huntress's head. She is then brought into Huntress's memories, presumably the dark corner we just heard about, where she finds the memory of the night Huntress's adoptive parents died. She can hear someone crying inside and finds a baby Huntress crying tears of sap, shouting at a door that won't open. Fionna sits down next to her and they both mope together. And as the two mope, Fionna holds Huntress in her arms. Huntress then sees a flash of all the time she's been held, the fire goes out, and the door opens, the heart revealing itself. It turns out that Huntress was the busted hoe all along. She then pulls a knife out and prepares to cut the throat of the heart, which the heart welcomes. Then she instead starts to worship it, and the heart gives her its powers. It leaves through the door and the portal to the vine space opens. Huntress says goodbye and walks through, but Fionna is kind of trying to avoid her problems right now, so she also jumps in. So let's get this straight. This is the dumbest made up shit ever, but we can be fair here and interpret what exactly the writers had planned here all along, because it is decipherable if you have a brain. Fionna is still the broken hoe, but Huntress didn't physically need Fionna to connect to the heart. She needed to emotionally connect to Fionna and others in general before she was able to make the connection herself. She didn't have to graft her hand to the heart or kill it to make the connection to the vine space. She instead connected to it voluntarily, the way it was originally done when Spirit Dream Warrior led the bandits to the heart. Now the way we got here is really dumb. Like there's no explanation for Huntress realizing the roses are the heart. It was just a random moment when she picked some up. Why would she think going into Fiona's mind would help at all in the first place? But the point they tried to get across here can be followed. Huntress could have touched that dark spot in her brain, and theoretically it would have led to the portal opening, but she needed to first realize connections to others was the path to doing that. We'll go into it a bit more when I break down all the themes at the end of the video. So the portal opens and the two get sucked in, Cake getting there just in time to witness it, and after the titles roll, Huntress has finally made it to the vine space. Red orbs moving up and down through a wall of clouds. But Fionna is also here, and it appears her depressed state drags her down.
That's what I do. Pull everyone down.
Oh my god, shut the fuck up, Fionna. And what is that? Could it be a worm of some cosmic variety? Huntress drops Fionna and grabs onto one of the falling balls to try to catch her. At the same time, Cake has showed up because the portal is an actual portal, so what really was the point of Fionna walking through that door? Cake sees Huntress falling and goes after her, but Huntress is distracted by some sort of distress call she feels reverberating through the viney tree things. So she throws Cake the ball to continue after Fionna, while she sidetracks to investigate whatever the distress call is. While falling, Cake is almost eaten by a giant worm, who stops when he notices she is not a paintball, instead bonking her into a pile of purple dust. Fionna, however, has landed inside of a carnivorous plant of some sort, which starts to digest her, until she's saved by Fern. Yay! Let it breathe for a moment. so everyone can freak out about it. Okay, so now that everyone is done being excited to see a character they liked from the original show, let us please put on our critical thinking caps. Why is Fern here? Answer, never given. They're also going to completely muck up his view of being a Finn that is no longer a Finn in a way that irks me a bit, all to fit better into the ideas they want Fionna to understand from him. Back with Huntress, she finds some little creature that looks turbo fucked on half its body. She connects, see there? Connections and stuff, to the plant guy, learning its name and somehow healing it. This is not a power we've ever seen possible, just another random thing happening just cuz. She learns from this little thing that his home has been poisoned with whatever this stuff is, and she goes with him to fix it. Keep in mind, we've been building up the idea of connections and the importance of responsibility to others around you in this show, but Huntress literally just abandoned Fionna, who for all she knows hit the bottom of whatever this place is and died, all to run off to go help this guy. It really undercuts the message they're trying to tell here. Cake emerges from the dust, asking what it is, and the worm explains it's his shit. Now is when we are finally told what this place is. The creature is known as the karmic worm. I'm still taking full points for guessing it. The first thing we learn is the name of this place, the undergrowth. The next is that the red orbs are pain balls. Quote, whenever someone in the multiverse pushes down a thought, he processes them so they can fruit again on the trees in this place. When they are light enough, they'll float back to the top to their source. Okay, that's a bit of a stretch. Like, what does that really have to do with karma? And what does any of this have to do with green magic? But you know what? This is fine. I see no real problem here so far, and it's an interesting concept. Let's hope they don't do anything too stupid with it. Cake asks if the karmic worm has seen Fionna, and while he hasn't, he's sure they'll find her. Cutting back to Fionna and Fern, she just straight up starts saying, "Are you Finn's doppelganger?" Why and how would you think that? Fern no longer looks anything like Finn. Literally, there are 0 ways this dialogue could be considered natural. Fern then says he is and remembers dying in Ooh, while his consciousness awoke in the undergrowth. And that's literally all the explanation we get for why Fern has been brought back. This is ignoring the fact that he died because the body that made up Fern was not the Finn inside. It was the curse which was killed. So if we remove the curse from the Finn that died, how much of this is supposed to be that Finn versus the curse? According to him though, he's just exactly the same. Yeah, remember the sword? Fuck that shit. I know the real reason they brought Fern back was fan service. People on Twitter were creaming over seeing him again, which is definitely the response the writers wanted, like jingling keys in front of a baby's face. Fern then says he tried to be Finn and wanted everything he had, so Fionna can say, "That sounds familiar," before Fern says he had to learn he was something different than Finn. But bro, you didn't want to be Finn. You fucking were Finn. Until the moment you weren't. That's where the entire conflict started. You lived every moment as Finn, the exact same way, until you drew the short straw and ended up the version turned into a sword. It was an understandably fucked situation Fern was going through. He wasn't pretending to be Finn or wishing that that was the case. He was Finn, and had that stripped away from him against his will. His character struggle being boiled down to wanting to be Finn is done to parallel Fionna trying to be a hero like Finn is. A parallel we could have definitely made with a little better writing, without shitting on Fern's entire struggle. He could have instead explained that he was exactly like Finn, until the moment that was taken away, and now he's gotta accept he's his own person, which would still parallel Fionna, who in that same way was a hero living in a world like Finn's, until it was taken away from her against her will, when the magic was removed from Simon's mind. They get to a tree that represents all of Finn's repressed sadness, and after a completely random nod to Shoko, one of Finn's past lives that mutated and died under what became the treehouse, were shown some of Finn's painful memories. Things like being rejected by Huntress after asking her to move in with him, to Jake's death, which we aren't shown but are told is really bad. Fern says that Finn isn't ready to deal with those emotions, so they never float to the top. Many problems here. First off, Finn absolutely processed the trauma of losing his arm for the first time. It was a whole episode where his hatred for his dad caused him to manifest a psychic arm that he used to build a tower into space to rip his dad's arm off. Second, Cake is the one who had it explained that shit floats up to the top. Fionna literally doesn't know what the fuck is going on or what that means. Next, this would imply that the person whose memories these are have some sort of control over if they float up in this dimension, while we were told by the karmic worm that they are regrown and will naturally float back up when they're light enough, even if sometimes they'll cycle back down if the person wasn't ready to deal with them. Also, why why are all of Finn's paintballs growing on the same tree? That's never really explained either.
Is everyone's unprocessed junk down here?
Oh god, we're about to do something stupid, aren't we? Back with Huntress, we begin ripping visuals straight from Hollow Knight as she finds the source of the poison, Witch Wizard, who followed her into the undergrowth and began siphoning green energy from the source. But how is that poisoning anything when she's sucking the energy out? Like, if that alone poisoned stuff, wouldn't it have poisoned the heart from all the grafting? After mocking Huntress with the vial she was seeking to help Finn, a fight breaks out. Back with Fionna, Fern has brought her to another tree. And no, it's not one that has all of her stuff on it, or even a single person's stuff on it. That would be consistency. This tree has all of her friends' stuff on it. Yay! Convenience. The first she sees is Gary's, which somehow is not the weakest of the bunch. He makes a whole dinner for his family and then heads out for a crappy hot dog instead. Starchy spells it out, saying that at least he doesn't have to cook. So Gary's whole thing is that he's always cooking for everyone, and no one ever does for him.
Dinner's ready.
I swear to God, the writers forgot all about this scene in their own show. Next is LSP, whose memory is of the message from the Venusians that he purposely avoided hearing. We now hear the message to Fionna was to go beyond the end of the peach, something that will not be explained until the last minutes of the show. Also, if this is a memory, how did we hear what was said if Ellis didn't hear it? Next is Marshall, whose memory is of his mother scolding him for making some noise when she wanted peace and quiet, telling him he makes things so difficult. The next is Hunter venting to Fennel about Fionna blowing off the parks committee meeting, wishing Fionna could get her shit together. And after that is Fionna playing with a bunch of cats at a shelter as a child. The workers say they don't know who she is, but the owner lets her hang out because a stray is a stray, implying Fionna has no parents and no family. She then angrily touches another paintball, the memory of the Winter King's death, which she definitely isn't ready to process, which causes her to lose her balance and fall out of the tree. She then cries in a pile of worm shit about how she hurts everyone around her. Yeah. You really do. She straight up ignored her friend's feelings through the entire season, running off to chase after doomed crushes and forcing everyone into positions they didn't want to be in. But bro, you needed these orbs to realize that? Half of this shit is non-consequential. You already knew Hunter was pissed about the meeting you missed, literally hung up on your ass, and you told Marshall to talk back to his mother when y'all stumbled upon his dream about her. You didn't connect any of these dots? You might genuinely be a terrible person, Fionna. Back to Huntress, we get a fight scene between her and Witch Wizard. She gets Huntress in the face and fucks up one of her eyes. Huntress shoots her with a tree, I guess. Witch Wizard absorbs more green energy and looks completely foobarred. I can't help but draw comparisons to the gem corruption in Steven Universe with this. She's got her power up and cuts off all of Huntress's limbs before turning into a bear, and Huntress grows out and reattaches her limbs. The whole thing being displayed in this fight is that Huntress has been gifted the ability to use green magic while Witch Wizard is stealing it, causing her to become corrupted. Huntress is able to command the branches in the undergrowth to restrain Witch Wizard before knocking her out. We move back to Cake and the worm explaining that he's come to like this place, but misses not being around other deities. He assumes Cake is a goddess of some sort, and she explains she feels more like a freak, stretching into whatever she wants, but never feeling like it's her. We then get a song about how change helps reveal what's the same, and she doesn't need to change to impress anyone like Imkron. Instead, she needs to remember that she's always going to be Cake, and that's good enough. This is supposed to be the payoff for the 5 minutes of Cake's identity crisis that we've seen sprinkled throughout the entire season. She was stretching to impress someone she had a crush on, and was seen as nothing more than a freak of some sort by most of the world, while inside she felt like she had to be something more than her cat instincts. It's too bad it was undercut by stuff like the joke about cats sleeping in dressers and having cat litter in the toilet, but now it's resolved. She's self-assured, and the funniest and best character throughout the entire season has finally had her subplot finished. Fern takes Fionna to a giant pizza box, presumably the etheric pizza we heard about in the flashback sequence, and they find the Karmic Worm and Cake, who are waiting there after discovering remnants of Fionna's clothing that melted off. While inside, the Karmic Worm explains how his job is a prison sentence after he and his brother got in trouble, though he believes his brother's punishment to be far worse. That's right, we are completely leaning into the the idea that being Fate's messenger is terrible and no good and very bad. Even more terrible, no good and very bad than being banished to the shadow realm no one knew existed, away from anybody else, while the Cosmic Owl was able to go to game nights at Prismo's place all the time. When Fionna and Cake realize the Cosmic Owl is the Karmic Worm's brother, they tell him he's dead. Without going into any detail, obviously, that would probably complicate stuff a bit. Now we reach the moment of complete tomfuckery beyond anything we've seen so far. The Karmic Worm says he feels selfish for not ever bringing himself to process his brother's pain balls, and now that he's gone, they're all that's left of him. As he begins to cry, Cake says, "It's okay, let it out," and he literally goes, "Oh shit, you right." Headbutts the paintball. Bam! The Cosmic Owl is alive again. The memory of the paintball turning into the idea that is the Cosmic Owl. Are you fucking kidding me? This is the dumbest cop-out writing of all fucking time. So not only could they not commit to killing the Cosmic Owl, but they literally bring him back with a headbutt to a random paintball. Does this motherfucker have infinite lives as long as they just have these paintballs lying around? Also, he immediately recognizes the Karmic Worm as his brother, when he shouldn't. He looks nothing like they did before their punishment, and the Cosmic Owl shouldn't even know his brother's alive. So why would he assume this is him? They have their little heartfelt moment that I literally couldn't enjoy because of how stupid this entire scene is, before we move to Finn being interrogated by Orbo while literally still in a coma. The Cosmic Owl comes bursting out of his corpse, calling for a mistrial, saying he got shanked on purpose. How true this is can be debated, but it seems possible that the writers are going for sad boy hates his prison sentence, misses his brother, and therefore kills himself through Huntress. It's still really stupid we're retconning his job into a prison sentence in the first place. What's even stupider is that Orbo agrees to the mistrial and says it's back to business now that the Cosmic Owl is no longer dead.
Nah, I quit.
Are you fucking kidding me? I thought this was a prison sentence. You literally just spent 2 episodes explaining and showing that they're being forced to do this. Now he can just fly away? I shit you not, that's what he does. He says, "You'll have to catch me first," when Orbo says he can't do that, as if he can't yoink people from literally anywhere at any time, including cosmic beings. This writing is awful, and it's all building up to an idea I hate, which is that actually, Fate is cringe and unbased. You can do whatever you want, something the writers need to be the case because they're literally doing whatever they want. The Karmic Worm expresses pride that his brother didn't hesitate to set things right, which leads to Fionna realizing she needs to stop being a baby and try to set things right between her and her friends. This is when Huntress Wizard shows up with Witch Wizard. Her eye is still fucked and it's glowing purple for some reason. Never explained. The Karmic Worm takes them back to the top, which brings me to the next question. I assumed Fionna was sinking to the ground because she was emotionally similar to the paintballs, but why were Cake and Huntress floating around until randomly throughout the story they no longer were? Huntress's happened nearly instantly, right after she stopped going after Fionna and passed it off to Cake. Cake was knocked to the ground by the Karmic Worm and didn't float anymore from then on, neither of which is ever explained, and now they're all back at the top and not floating. Huntress says she lost the cure for Finn, but that she'll find another way, while Fionna needs to head home to fix her problems. Cake says she wants to stay a while longer to see what the undergrowth can do for her, and everyone hugs and it's a big moment as Huntress finally learns that getting close to people is based. She then goes, "Thanks Fionna, you're not a busted up hoe after all." Pat pat. Fionna heads back and Karmic Worm heads down to the ground with Fern and Cake, and Huntress heads out to find the Ooh portal. We then cut to Ooh, where for some unexplained reason, the green wizards have been tied up and brought to the Candy Kingdom. This would imply that someone knows something wrong was going on here, but that can't be the case when they didn't even know what the heart was, let alone its origins. And Bonnie is the one that fucking murdered it while they were all mourning around it. Bonnie says Finn's organs have severely weakened and that he could go at any moment. We then get the stupidest fake out ever.
There's no other choice. We have to call his mom.
I'm sorry, was that a shotgun noise? For literally no reason, they threw in a shotgun noise before Bonnie lifted up a phone. It's not even funny, it's just dumb. There is a very bad implication by saying we're going to be dealing with Finn's mom. In the original show, we learned Minerva sacrificed herself to save the remaining human population from a terrible virus, uploading herself to the cloud and becoming a sentient army of helper robots to nurse the population through the illness. When she first met Finn, she immediately wanted to upload him to the cloud as well, to preserve him forever like her. So if we're calling his mother, this means Bonnie's last-ditch effort is to upload Finn to the cloud. Cutting back to Huntress, she finds the Ooh portal, but that shit blows the fuck away because Bonnie killed the heart, meaning she has no way of getting back to Ooh, as expected. And with that, we've made it to the finale of the season, The Bear and the Rose, the episode that has to wrap everything up nicely in a bow, from Finn's poisoning and Huntress trying to reach Ooh, to Fionna literally ruining everything her friends were working to save. And after this episode, we'll finally be able to talk about the themes this show was trying to get across and all the arcs our characters were given. We start the episode with another flashback, this time of Finn helping his mother Minerva with some robo-pests chewing on her servers. This sequence is meant to show that Finn's mother is worried about him allegedly dating this Huntress wizard she's heard about, but who's never actually around. Finn says she's just not really a social person, while his mother worries his best years are going to be wasted in whatever sort of situationship the two are in. After the intro, everyone is gathered in Minerva's server room around Finn's body. Bonnie says Finn is one of a kind and should be preserved at all costs. Minerva throws in a line about wishing she had a copy of his living will, but she kept burning them. While the purpose of a will is to know how to distribute your belongings after you've already passed away, a living will outlines your preferences for treatment if you've been incapacitated. Stuff like, do you want to be left on life support or do you want them to pull the plug? Presumably, Finn's living will would say something along the lines of he didn't want to be resuscitated if he was left in this kind of state. The Minerva bots bring in the techno coffin, as Bonnie argues that either they save him and he lives forever like her and Marceline, or they need to put him out of his misery. They test the coffin by squishing a fruit, and oh my god, if they put Finn in that thing, I'm going to actually snap. Bonnie tells everyone to send out word. Today is Finn the human's last day alive. Back in Fionna World, Gary and Marshall have stumbled upon the destroyed remains of the sweet spot, after all that work they did to buy it back. Gary says, what kind of evil person could do this? His mouth actually disappears here. And Marshall says it had to have been Queenie.
We can't prove it though.
We'll get proof.
Bro, are you kidding me? This is Queenie's land. She said she was gonna do this. She literally almost did it in episode 5. Also, what do you need proof for? If y'all had some kind of legal case in the first place, you probably should have gone that route. At the same time, Fionna emerges from the undergrowth and admits it was her who wrecked the place out of anger. But she says she's willing to do anything to make it right again. Gary starts crying and the two walk off, into this corner, by the way, before vanishing. At the same time, because we need to move this shit along at hyper speed, Fennel and Hunter happen to walk by. Completely ignoring the destroyed sweet spot, I might add, they walked right past it and into the middle of the street. Fionna overhears them talking about her kissing DJ Flame. Hunter saying Flame shouldn't have done that to Fennel. Then Fennel says, I don't know if that's what upset me. I really thought Fionna and I could have been friends. So your boyfriend goes and cheats on you right in front of you, and that's not what you're most bothered about? Nope, because apparently the thing that upset her the most is that she thought Fionna wanted to be her friend, you see. When has an interaction like this ever happened in the history of ever? The two then walk backwards and find the destroyed trailer, and Fionna sneaks off. Back in the undergrowth, Huntress tries to piece the heart portal back together, even though we watched it blow away in the void last episode. Also, her eye was fucked up by Witch Wizard. This episode takes place literal moments after the last, and now it's just fine. Witch Wizard mocks her, saying they'll be trapped there forever, and Huntress just goes, actually, I already know another way out of here. She then handstands on part of the tree and grows her antlers into it to access the multiverse. Like I said, we are completely making shit up, and Huntress now just magically knows she can do this, and is able to access any of the universes her seeds landed in back in episode 2. Not only that, but remember how it took her like 2 whole days to even escape the pot? Well, now she's able to grow instantly in all of these dimensions. The first universe is Vampire World, and she's got more of a mushroom vibe going on. The second is a water world where she's basically made of seaweed, and the third is Farm World, where she appears much different, way more orange and spiky. One of Finn's kids sees her and mistakes her as their mother, confirming something we were all pretty sure about. Farm World Finn's wife in this universe was Huntress Wizard, who is most likely a fellow human. The kid is excited to see Huntress until she fucking dips from her body and scars him for life. The next dimension is Baby World, followed by literally space. If she can't even breathe here, how is she growing? She finally grows into into a place that looks like Ooh before it's revealed to be the Winter King's universe. And this universe's Finn is dating Slime Princess. And with that, none of Huntress's seeds landed in Ooh, meaning she is in fact stuck in the undergrowth. Back in Ooh, Finn now looks exactly like the version of himself we saw after his death. As everyone gathers around him, Peppermint tells us that there's a chance the upload could fail, and if that happens, Finn could be stuck in limbo for eternity. And Simon voices his firm opposition to the idea of uploading him at all. We get a fake out joke that's almost as bad as the shotgun noise, where a banana guard says, "This day wouldn't be complete without Finn's closest family member," before we see Jake's silhouette. Everyone gasps, and it's actually Nepter, an often forgotten about character from the original show, who was created by Finn to throw pies at people. Bonnie goes on to explain that after Finn is digitized, he'll be uploaded into her custom-made robot body, so he can live forever. Back with Huntress, we get some of the most irritating writing in the whole show. Huntress says out loud that the heart was a conduit, but with her original body destroyed, she no longer has a connection to Ooh. So she goes over to Witch Wizard and says, "You can still tap into the heart," to which Witch Wizard understandably says, "But I hate you." Yeah, she does. Then 2 seconds later, she's like, "Okay, I'll help you." She says she feels something, but it's faint, and they hold hands and slink into the branch they're standing on. We then move back to Ooh, where Bonnie and Marceline are singing Margaret's Lullaby, a song first seen in the episode Meow, that we learned Finn and Jake's mother would sing to them at bedtime. While they sing this song, Finn is picked up, placed inside the techno coffin, and it's closed on him. Finn is then crushed at an agonizing pace, and I'm going to be honest, when I first saw this, I freaked the fuck out. They couldn't do this to my boy, and they weren't going to do this to my boy, but they pulled a ton of tomfuckery to make me feel the way I felt watching this scene. I'll explain it in a minute. As his consciousness begins uploading, a thorn begins growing out of Finn's back, and the coffin begins to glow. Seeing something's wrong, Marceline and Bonnie break it open, and out grows Huntress, whose horns act as a portal for Witch Wizard. Finn is far less squished than we saw just 2 seconds ago, and Huntress begins attempting to revive him, saying she needs more life to do it. She then, and I shit you not, in Dragon Ball Z fashion, raises her hand to the sky and begins charging a spirit bomb, sucking all the life out of each version of herself. How can she be conscious in all of these universes at once to accomplish this? It could be argued that the reason she was able to grow all of these versions of herself instantly was because she's now connected to the undergrowth and can use the nature energy there to grow quickly. But with this new power, we were shown she needed to connect her horns into the undergrowth to access those other universes. Now she can just connect to them at will from wherever she is. She sprouts colorful roots from her hand, each representing one of the multiverse versions of herself, and she begins pumping that life force into Finn. Each version of herself dies, and Finn is physically healed. Bonnie breaks down, saying she almost crushed Finn to death, which, yeah, but how are you supposed to know Huntress Wizard was going to literally Deus Ex Machina out of the scar on his back? The concept of a Deus Ex Machina is that of a plot device coming out of nowhere and solving an issue that showed no diegetic way of being handled. Like if your story was about trying to make money to save your house from being repossessed, and at the very end, when all looks lost, you get a letter saying a long-lost aunt you didn't know about passed away and left you all of her money, so the house is now saved. Huntress spawning straight out of Finn's back is 100% a Deus Ex Machina. We were told the portal to Ooh's heart was a singular beast. We were shown the heart was killed. The portal shattered into pieces, but something completely unexpected and not at all set up ends up saving the day. The implication here is that Finn's poisoned body was the last remnant of the heart left in Ooh, and after they connected to it, Huntress somehow grew a new body. It is in fact a new one. This is not what she looked like 2 seconds ago, but does this mean Huntress is the new heart? She literally had a portal coming out of her antlers. This might explain why she'd be able to connect to all those other universes. She is the new conduit, but if that was the case, why did she need to connect to them anyways? Why couldn't she just use the green nature magic of the undergrowth to heal Finn? Alongside that, every single time we've been shown the techno coffin in use, including earlier in this episode, the smashing happens instantly. They artificially had to slow it down to painful speeds to make this save possible, completely ignoring rules we were shown not 10 minutes ago. But all is not well yet. Finn's upload was interrupted midway, so his consciousness is gone. This problem of a failed upload is also artificially created by the slowed down techno coffin, since we were shown in the Minerva flashback that it's practically instant. You see that little light? That's her consciousness being uploaded. But now Finn's consciousness isn't in the cloud or in his body, and I half expected them to crack a paintball to solve the problem. Instead, we cut to Cake, who's doing breath work with the karmic worm. He's offered to let her stay with him in the pizza box, but before that goes anywhere, Huntress shows up in the form of an astral projection, similar to how her body started out when she was destroyed here. The ability to astral project herself at will was invented for this moment because A, there is no portal she can go back through to get back into the undergrowth, and B, if she did go back into the undergrowth, she'd have to walk her ass all the way back to this pizza box. Huntress tells Cake she needs to get a message to Fionna. Why does Huntress need Fionna's help to save Finn? You'll see in a moment, and I'll let it play out before I tear it apart. On the rooftop of DJ Flame's studio, Fionna and Felix discuss what happened. Felix says Fennel told him she needs time to think. Fionna says she feels like she was pursuing Felix for the wrong reasons, like she was trying to prove something or to force a happy ending. But looking at it now, she recognizes that they aren't good for each other. DJ Flame tries to charm her, but now, with all the growth of 20 minutes inside of the undergrowth, she wishes Felix good luck in life. This feels super fucking forced, bro. She hadn't gotten anywhere close enough to Fennel in, count it, one entire day of interaction while tripping on acid to not want to steal her boyfriend. We know this because she made out with him, like the evening before this sunrise. Her epiphany about trying to force the relationship is also just ham-fisting the theme of that book I'll bring up later. Cake comes out of a portal in a rose right behind Fionna. Why here instead of where Fionna came out? For convenience, obviously, we gotta move, and trying to find Fionna would waste runtime. Cake says Finn needs her help with no elaboration, and that she needs to do the mind thing to look for clues. Now is when we must recognize we've wasted precious time on something for Fionna to do, when this is an ability Huntress herself could have used. Finn is right next to her. This is like posting mail to your roommate instead of handing it directly to them. Why does Fionna even have the power to do this? And how would Huntress know she has the power to do this? Fionna enters Finn's mind, and we get one of the most out of left field callbacks yet. Bellamy Bug, only seen in a single episode, Rainy Daydreams, back in season 1 of the original show. An episode where the boys are stuck inside due to a knife storm, and Jake uses his imagination to make it more interesting, only for it to go wrong. So he imagines an imagination off machine, only for that to go wrong after being flipped. Finn then has to use his imagination to turn it back on, and in the process runs into Bellamy Bug, a manifestation in his imaginary zone of his want to be more civilized. You could literally remove this entire cameo and it changes nothing, as Fionna reaches Finn's mind again. It should also be noted, she's now able to directly connect to him after only meeting him in a dream. There's nothing in his head like last time, but the TV they used to get into his dreams has turned off. She turns her attention to the only other thing inside Finn's head, a picture on the wall, which turns out to be covering a hole. We get a number of references to Finn's past as Fionna travels through this hole. The first is from season 6 episode 21, The Dentist. She travels down the same tunnel Finn did to meet the Ant Queen. Next is from season 5 episode 16, Puhoy, the tunnel he traveled to enter the pillow dimension he lived an entire life inside. Then season 5 episode 9, All Your Fault, the halls of Lemongrab's castle. Season 2 episode 21, Belly of the Beast, the inside of the giant's throat. Season 9 episode 14, 3 Buckets, the ziggurat fern trapped Finn inside, which would eventually become the stronghold of Uncle Gumbald. Season 7 episode 1, Bonnie and Nettie, the stairway to the roots of the Candy Kingdom tree. Next, the well from the dentist episode that Finn was shoved down with snakes and butter. And finally, season 2 episode 24, Mortal Folly, the well of power where Finn fought the Lich. Though more accurately, the shot is from season 9 episode 13, Whispers, when he follows the Lich Hand back to the well during the Sweet Pea incident. Fionna's finally fallen to the bottom of this memory hole to arrive at Finn's heart, which is much more full than his mind, he being one to more often follow his heart rather than think about things too much. Like someone who googled a walkthrough before playing a game, Fionna guesses the right spot to look for Finn, under a rug and beneath a trapdoor and inside of a chest. Down in this deepest part of Finn's heart, there's a number of things Finn loves. The Finn sword, his stuffed animal from when he was a baby, the flute made to help Huntress Wizard, and meatloaf, his favorite food. Fionna asks if Finn wants to be alone and he says no, he doesn't. She then blurts out, "You were the gut voice."
You were the gut voice.
I'm sorry, what? She's referring to the gut voice she listened to when deciding to throw Finn under the bus as the killer of the cosmic owl. How and why?
Who are you? 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 Oh, hey, who are you?
This guy couldn't even remember who the fuck you were after every curtain drop in his dream. What do you mean he was the voice talking to you? This line was thrown in as a way for the writers to try and claw back any amount of goodwill for Fiona, who for completely selfish reasons decided to frame an innocent dying man for the crime she attempted to cover up. This is also supposed to further strengthen the idea that Finn is suicidal and is looking for any way to get himself killed. And I'm not buying it. There's zero way to cut this that makes sense for Finn to have contacted Fiona on some deeper level to tell her to frame him. Fiona says there's a lot of people waiting for him in the real world, but he says no one will ever love him the way Jake did. Fiona says Huntress loves him, and Finn is skeptical she'd actually ever say anything like that, because at this point she hasn't. Finn says Huntress is a wise wizard while he's just a dumb baby man. Fiona goes on to monologue explaining that Huntress isn't very expressive, but she was able to learn from Huntress's bad example that instead of trying to fix everyone's problems, she really just needs to listen and communicate better, and show the people she loves that she cares when it actually matters. This speech convinces Finn to come out of his hole, and his consciousness returns to his body. Huntress and Finn share a kiss, everyone celebrates, and the season wrap begins. Starting with a very subtle detail, Marcy giving Bonnie's crown to Peppermint, having said earlier in the episode, after she broke down when Finn was revived, that she might need a break from being a leader.
I think you need a break.
Way to support your significant other through one of the biggest blunders of her career, Marcy. This is setting up for a detail we saw in Distant Lands, and one of the only things that gave me hope that we wouldn't see Finn die this season. After reuniting, Finn and Jake contact Peppermint Butler for help, knowing he had a close friendship with Death. Peppermint Butler is no longer his child self seen since the end of the original series, meaning it had to have occurred sometime after Peppermint grew up, not anytime this season, where he's still a child. He's also wearing Princess Bubblegum's crown and is cleaning a statue of her. There was speculation at the time, but this confirms that sometime in the future, Peppermint Butler has become the princess of the Candy Kingdom. Finn's near death seems to have been the catalyst that led to Bonnie deciding to step down as ruler. Cake talks to Imkron about running off after their kiss, saying she still really likes him, but it didn't feel right, and the two decide to be friends. We're just gonna ignore that this guy was interested in fucking a cat and probably deserves to be put on a list. Next up, Gary and Marshall get home and find Fiona cooking them a cake made out of hot dogs that says sorry on top. Gary says he can tell she's trying to make amends, but it's not enough. Yeah, breaking and entering into someone's home to make a shit pie out of their food is not the best way to make up for destroying their entire dream project because he got sad.
But no one has made food for me in a long time.
Wait, say that again?
No one has made food for me in a long time.
One more time?
No one has made food for me in a long time.
Yep, just had to be sure. Viewers, turn your attention to Season 2, Episode 5, The Butterfly in the River, approximately 4 to 5 days before this line was uttered.
Dinner's ready.
This is so fucking lazy, bro. Holy shit. They forgot their own pace-demolishing bullshit, or hoped you would, because the easiest way to artificially wrap this up is for Gary to accept this shitty apology as a stepping stone to Fiona making it up to them. We are talking hours from them learning she destroyed the sweet spot, guys. This is painful. They go to the radio station with a demo tape of Marshall's music, and we get a montage of Fiona apologizing to Fennel, Cake hanging out with the karmic worm more. How is she doing this though? Does this mean she has green magic and can access the undergrowth at will? We see Prismo is still depressed, though it looks like the Scarab has returned to his post and is comforting him. Season's now over, and we never got an explanation for why his magic doesn't work. The gang has bought the sweet spot back and are now building on it. That's right, that 70k they needed to buy it, they bought it and somehow have the money to not only clear the damage, but to start building bigger and better on top of it. At Huntress's place, in the middle of fucking nowhere I might add, she's teaching a class to the Green Wizards, as well as Peppermint and his friends, on how to tap into green nature magic, specifically pointing out to us viewers that it doesn't need to be exploitative like we were shown it previously was. A question still unanswered, however, the heart is dead. Where are you pulling the green magic from now? It's not like the idea of the heart is no more, because Huntress literally says the heart belongs to all of us. It's almost as bad as Fiona World turning into a wish and being given to Fiona inside Fiona World. Finn is also shown to be living with Huntress now, again in the middle of bumblefuck nowhere, and Peppermint is preparing to rule the Candy Kingdom after graduation. We also see off in the distance that Spirit Dream Warrior has targeted Astrid as his next child to groom. Back in Fiona World, the Sweet Spot has now been built, and is like some sort of community center more than a bakery, where Gary teaches people how to bake, Mr. Cheaterman is teaching kids how to DJ, while Fennel and Hunter loiter nearby. Fennel and Fiona have made up, cause that's definitely believable. Can you guys imagine if Flame Princess and Finn's relationship was solved in a minute-long montage? Queenie is seen in the window spying on the Sweet Spot, yearning to have something this successful. Fiona then spawns in behind her to offer her the ability to invest in the Sweet Spot, causing her to run off. None of these windows line up, by the way. DJ Flame is near a window similar to these, but Queenie is looking in through this window, which in the close shot has colorful panels and is now just a regular window. Fiona is then seen walking through the streets before reaching a dead end. Looking at the street sign, it's actually Peach Street, which makes her recall the LSP paintball, Go Beyond the End of the Peach. She kicks down the wall, revealing a completely untouched world. Cake, Fennel, and Hunter spawn in, and they all run off into the sunset, before we see a shot of the planet from space, revealing that the entire thing appears to be untouched, but for the city in the middle of a field. Now, remember when I mentioned that bay next to the amusement park on a pier that's obviously heavily inspired by the Santa Monica Pier in California? Where the fuck is the bay? They seem to have forgotten that they showed ocean waves on a sandy beach earlier in the season, and now the entire city has been retconned to have spawned in the middle of a new planet the moment that wish in season 1 was made. The assumption before this point being that nothing physically existed outside of the city after the magic of Simon's mind was removed. There's also a glimmer out in space, which people are noting looks very similar to the comet from the main universe. Now there's actually a post-credit scene that is meant to set up for a potential third season. Marshall is playing his guitar on the street, and a gender-swapped tree trunks tosses him some money. A familiar pair of boots steps into frame as Hudson Abadir, the ruler of the Nightosphere, compliments Marshall's song, before asking him if he has a minute. And then the screen cuts to black. I don't even know where to begin with this. We are, as of writing, unsure if this is the main ooze Hudson, or if Hudson is a single cosmic being like the Cosmic Owl or the Karmic Worm. I personally think there would need to be a Nightosphere per universe, or else we have an entire other can of issues we have to open, like multiple Marcelines. Marceline is the bastard child of her mother and Hudson. For her to exist in Vampire World, that means Hudson would need to sleep with that universe's version of her mother. And if there's only one Hudson, why would he go around to different universes, including potentially the Winter King's universe, to sleep with the same woman across the multiverse? On that same note, why would he then only care about our universe's Marcy, focusing on her as his heir, if he had a multiverse full of children? It makes more sense that there are multiple Hudsons, and the universes Marcy happens to exist in are ones where Hudson met her mother. The next question, how is Hudson in Fiona's world? Hannah Abadir is presumably the retconned non-magical female Hudson, which further points to this guy being the same dude from Ooh. But if he is, how did he get here? Even in Ooh, to summon him, you have to do a ritual. And if he is the Ooh version, how could he have made it to Fiona's world? The question we don't need to ask though is if he's the father of Marshall. No, he's not. Everyone on Twitter is coping. How do I know this? Because Marshall is black, while Marceline is not. Why? Because she's half demon, so her skin is pale. See Marshall in the tree memory? Demon child. Pale. See him now? Retconned. Full human. The last question is, why has Hudson gone out of his way to approach Marshall, the guy who's definitely not his son, but also was his alternative universe son, before an in-universe retcon made that not the case? We cannot answer this question because, to be honest, the writers could do whatever at this point with how terrible this season went. To be blunt, I can't give this season any higher than a 5 out of 10. That is to say, it's extremely mid. We spent 4 hours, 25 Adventure Time episodes, on 2 stories. Almost every episode spent more than the first 10% of the runtime on flashbacks, half of which were completely pointless. And despite having only 2 main stories throughout the season, we were never able to stay on one thing long enough to get comfortable, having to jump back and forth between at least 2 side plots per episode, which kills the pacing even more. The insane amount of retconning and plot contrivances is also ridiculous, while the writers have just ignored all the loose threads they've created. Let's go through a few of them. Multiple times through the show, Huntress pulls abilities straight straight out of her ass whenever needed. The first was the ability to travel through time inside of the willow. She's then able to do that later without getting stuck inside of it like the first time, having to reach her hand to escape. The second power is the ability to go into people's minds, and with that, travel to dreams of people in other universes. The third is the ability to give others, including herself, wizard eyes, which itself has been retconned. All of these abilities were achieved while she wasn't connected to the heart, and the tree hopping happened before she returned to a state of growth similar to the one she was at before losing her original body. Fionna also has the power to enter the minds and dreams of different universe Finns, and we're just supposed to accept that ability with no questions, while Cake is seen hanging out in the undergrowth later on, meaning she has to have some sort of green magic as well. The solution the writers wanted for Finn's poisoning was for Huntress to return and save him, so they had to write themselves in circles to prevent him from being healed in any other way. This included saying wish magic isn't working and going into no more detail. We now know this season happened less than a month after the last, so why exactly can't Prismo make wishes at all now? We already know from the original show that there's plenty of stuff he can't do with wishes. For instance, you couldn't wish yourself into the interdimensional prison known as the Citadel. We were also shown in the finale montage of the original show that Simon tried to wish for Betty to come back, and it failed to work. Simon also tried the demonic wishing eye, and it did do something, albeit useless, compared to Prismo, who said he all of a sudden has no wish magic left. This season also retcons the Cosmic Owl's job as Fate's messenger to be a prison sentence that's been forced upon him. Then not moments later, after being told this for the 10th time, he quits and just flies off, with apparently no one able to stop him, despite the power to stop cosmic entities that we've previously been shown. The most notable retcon is the Undergrowth, the Swiss Army knife of shitfuck. It's a dimension connecting all of the multiverse to green magic, which is nature magic. The conduit for this connection is an entity known as the Heart of the Forest, except for when it's not a single entity and is everywhere or nowhere, because all that's left is a bit of blood. This entity is also a portal to the Undergrowth, which is also a dimension where people's painful thoughts end up. How do they get here? Well, we're never shown, but presumably through the same portal that everything else enters this dimension through, the Heart of the Forest, somehow. You can also float around down here until you can't. There's also a worm down here who eats pain and turns it into the opposite of pain, so the painful memories regrow on trees and float back up to the top, where they will reach the person they belong to, and if they aren't ready to handle those memories, they'll fall back down. Unless the person whose memories they are don't want them to grow, then they just stay on the tree forever, I guess. This guy also says his consciousness showed up here when he died, despite us seeing what it looks like when a consciousness shows up here, this clearly being the body he shouldn't have anymore. Also, if your body ever touches this place, you're no longer able to be teleported by Prismo. These pain balls can also revive cosmic beings if you just give one a little tap on the head. Could you make multiple cosmic owls if you accidentally drop these? Probably. You guys have to see what I mean when I point out all the problems all at once, right? But now that we've gone over the major issues with the show, we can go over the themes. A big theme throughout the season is fate versus free will, with the writers clearly deciding for the world of Adventure Time that fate as a concept is bad and needs to be completely thrown to the wolves. So what was the last canon Croak dream we were ever shown? A character literally called Destiny being killed by a wolf, symbolizing what the writers were planning on doing this season. The writers have decided that the idea of cosmic determinism is bad, and therefore needs to be dismantled completely, no matter how many holes in that idea are left unaddressed. It honestly could have worked better if they did commit to killing the cosmic owl. I still think it's a bad direction to take it, but it would have at least prevented the stupidity that was the courtroom scene in episode 9. To go over some of the other themes, we're gonna have to go over each of the arcs our characters went through this season, starting with our protagonist, Fionna. Other big themes throughout this season include responsibility and consequences, and specifically how Fionna tries to avoid both. Her arc is ripped straight from Of Human Bondage, the book Cake was reading in episode 5. In this book, the main character, Philip, goes on a long and hopeless search for a purpose in life, abandoning the path set for him by his aunt and uncle, and attempting to become an artist in Paris. Over time, Philip learns that having the freedom to choose your own path in life doesn't necessarily mean you'll be fulfilled with the path you're choosing. He realizes the true chains enslaving humanity are emotion and passion, and the idea that some grand destiny must exist for him. He learns that if he wants to be happy, he needs to moderate these passions and accept an ordinary life. By the end of the story, Philip is able to break free of his obsessive search for meaning and purpose, as well as passionate love, and instead embracing a simple life, starting a family, and becoming content with nothing more grand than the responsibility to that family. The simplest pattern, that of which a man was born, worked, married, had children, children and died was likely the most perfect. Like the main character of the book, Fionna clings to an obsessive love and a greater calling, in the form of her infatuation with DJ Flame and her self-imposed burden of saving the sweet spot. But chasing after destiny leads her to nothing but failure, because the chase is actually a distraction from commitment and responsibility. She puts all of her time and money into the sweet spot, finding a greater purpose in it, while neglecting the responsibilities of paying her rent. She shifts all of her focus into helping Huntress upon finding her in the apartment, leading Fionna to neglect the commitment she made to Hunter to talk to the parks committee about a venue for the fundraiser. All of this is while she's chasing the passionate relationship she believes she's destined to have with DJ Flame. But in the end, she wasn't destined for anything great. She didn't save the sweet spot. Cake and the others did without her. And chasing the passion she felt for DJ Flame only led her to harm the more meaningful relationships she had with others. Fionna's story is not about being the hero or being special. It's about finding meaning and committing to the responsibility it takes to have a good life and good relationships. She wanted to feel like she was part of some grand destiny, but in reality, she was only using destiny as a coping mechanism to avoid commitment. Only after she recognizes this was she able to step in and help save Finn. Next, we have Huntress Wizard, whose arc revolves around sacrifice and devotion, alongside the idea of growing through self-discovery. The evolution of her physical body mirroring her emotional growth as she learns to open up more and connect with others. In the first episode of the season, she's referred to as a sprout, and by the end of the season, she's now blossomed into a rose. Many of her problems were caused by her secrecy and inability to open up to others, not telling Bonnie what poisoned Finn when that could have helped save him sooner. Working with Fionna and Fennel from the beginning and not going out on her own could have prevented the completely unnecessary drug trip the two go on. Even things like connecting her roots to the river and the tree and the branches of the undergrowth parallel her realizations that connections are better than keeping everyone and everything at arm's length. Cake's arc is pretty simply about self-discovery and acceptance of her true self, rather than trying to be something she wasn't. The problem with her arc is that the vague amount it's touched on until the end of the show can leave one confused as to what's being expressed. In fact, most people assumed until the end of episode 8 that this human was gonna fuck a cat. It was even reinforced in episode 7 until a 180 was had an episode later. I also found it weird that fans were coping about the failed kiss, saying stuff like, well, of course it was weird, she has a cat mouth, that doesn't mean the relationship is over. Cake's elastic nature is representative of the way she adapts to what others need. She's physically changing herself to meet expectations, rather than just being herself. The little girl at the beginning of the show, the Cheers cameo appearance, and most notably, her relationship with Imkron. She's quite literally trying to fit into this relationship that doesn't align with who she truly is. Part of this is due to her selfless nature, willing to stretch to her very limits to help the people she cares about. And by the end of the show, she's learned she needs to be herself. The next biggest arc we get is Marshall's, though it's still pretty lacking. Throughout the season, he holds his emotions close to his chest, afraid that if he's emotionally vulnerable, the people around him will leave, something he learned from Simone entering his life, becoming an influence on him, helping him open up, getting him into music, before she abruptly left him with no explanation. Upon realizing that he's wrongfully characterized what happened in his childhood days, he's able to reconcile with Simone, as well as having a bittersweet moment of expressing his trust issues through his music. Next up is Finn, who gets almost no real screen time the entire season, but his bit of character development relates vaguely to Fionna's, as he too seems to learn by the end of the season that meaning doesn't need to come from dying in some grand manner, but such meaning is more found in the mundane nature of living a content life with those you care about, something that really couldn't have happened until Huntress was willing to accept others into her life. And then we have Gary. Gary is an absolutely underutilized and underdeveloped character, whose issues are so trivial it makes me almost not like him. The big problem revealed in his paintball is that Gary was always cooking for others and no one ever cooked for him. It's honestly hard to read anything meaningful out of that, especially when it was never touched on or alluded to throughout the rest of the show. My guess is that Rebecca Sugar pulled this idea straight out of her ass, just to give Gary a paintball, and no one fact-checked it, cause again, he just had dinner at his parents' that same week, where they cooked for him. Gary was done dirty by this season, and it's pretty irritating. And with that, we finally covered the entirety of season 2, which is attempted to set up what we can only guess is more rule-breaking involving Hudson Abadir and the Nightosphere. That is, if a season 3 ever happens. We no longer live in a world where TV shows are renewed for 3 seasons at a time, and the fact this season got out the door was already pushing it. But there has been another Adventure Time series announced while I was writing this. Adventure Time Side Quests, a prequel series which plans to go back to when Finn and Jake were younger longer, as well as move back to an episodic formula. I really didn't think they were going to go back to Finn and Jake. I was expecting, if anything, they'd skip to Beth and Shermie's time, but who knows, there's still time, and I honestly have high hopes for the show if it's returning to an episodic format. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you'd like to see more. With this video out the door, the plan is to review the second season of the Gumball Revival series, so if you haven't watched the first season review, make sure to check that out. That's all we got for today. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.